Chapter 1051. After preaching the ancestral voice to Xian Xianghua, mortal sovereign, and Shen Yanxing, Zhou Xuanji felt a little free. He returned to the Kunlun origin court and began traveling. Although the Sword Emperor Divine Court was fighting fiercely in Nanwujin, there was no need for him to show up in person. Nanwujin was like a big meat pie that anyone could take a bite out of. Fortunately, Hunyuan Heaven and Cardinal Heaven had cleaned up the powerful cultivators. Now, the three endless overlords didn't have to show up in person. Not showing up didn't mean that they didn't care. They were all waiting for each other to show up first. It had been a long time since he came to the Kunlun origin court. Zhou Xuanji suddenly felt that the Kunlun origin court had changed a lot. The strength of all living beings had obviously become stronger. There were many cultivators like Mortal Sovereign in the past. Thinking back, Mortal Sovereign was so powerful in the Kunlun origin court. Zhou Xuanji suddenly thought of the past sovereigns of the Kunlun origin court. It was embarrassing to say it. Most of these sovereigns didn't come to him but went to other endless overlords. Zhou Xuanji didn't mention these things. His subordinates didn't mention them either. Everyone knew that he was the current master of the Kunlun origin court. As for the sovereigns who were still alive, no one cared about them. He began to walk his own path of rise. From the Great Zhou Empire to the Emperor Sword Divine Range. After so many years, the Great Zhou Empire was still prosperous. It had a lot to do with Zhou Xuanji. In the northern wilderness region, Zhou Xuanji had become the greatest god. The Great Zhou Empire was also building momentum. Any creature that ascended from the northern wilderness region would be taken care of by the upper realm. Even if they were not talented, no one would easily offend them. The biggest reason was that the disciples of the Emperor Sword Court would descend to the mortal world from time to time, marry, and have children. In modern terms, they liked to go back to the novice village to abuse others. As long as they didn't mess around, Zhou Xuanji didn't bother to pay attention to them. This journey lasted for 100 years. Zhou Xuanji walked all the roads he had walked before and looked back at the scenery again. The world had changed. Everything had changed. Even his mood had changed. He felt even more. Although it didn't improve his cultivation much, he felt it very good. Don't forget your original intention. When he returned to the star's domain, a divine lord came to deliver the news. Zhou Xuanji let him in. The god sovereign half knelt on the ground and cupped his fists. Your Majesty, Sword Monarch, Qin Zun is fighting against the ancient geniuses. Both sides are equally matched and are still fighting. Zhou Xuanji asked, did Western Endless retract their forces in Southern Endless? No. The divine sovereign replied. Zhou Xuanji narrowed his eyes. It seemed that Gu Juejiu did not take Qin Zun seriously at all. Regardless of whether he won or lost, it would not affect Dong Wujin's status. After all, Zhongji, Cardinal Heaven and Hunyuan Heaven had already been defeated by Qin Zun. It wasn't shameful for him to lose, and he would only be sending Qin Zun to the peak. Compared to one's personal reputation, unifying the boundless universe was more important. Your Majesty Sword Emperor, do we need to set up defenses? God Monarch asked. He knew that Zhou Xuanji was unfathomable, but Zhou Xuanji was still young. Compared to those old monsters, he was probably weaker. Although Gu Juejiu was forced to retreat, he was not injured. Everyone guessed that the two of them had made some kind of deal. Zhou Xuanji shook his head and said, he can't defeat me. As long as it wasn't an Eternal Realm expert, no one could defeat him. At most, he wouldn't be able to defeat the enemy. Seeing how confident Zhou Xuanji was, the Divine Lord wanted to say something but stopped himself. Qin Zun was simply too domineering. He appeared out of nowhere and challenged the endless overlords. There wasn't a second person like him in the entire boundless universe. You may leave. Zhou Xuanji waved his hand and said. Having heard him, the Divine Lord could only leave. After he left the palace, Zhou Xuanji smiled. Qin Zun, I want to see who you are and what secrets the Eternal God Gate is hiding, Zhou Xuanji mumbled to himself. The sovereign serendipity might have come from the Eternal God Gate. Perhaps the Eternal God Gate hid the true sovereign serendipity. Although the supreme legendary sword system was powerful, it couldn't make him invincible. The true sovereign serendipity could make one invincible in the world. It was unstoppable. After that, Zhou Xuanji closed his eyes and stopped thinking about it. Boom! A horrifying and powerful light swept across the entire universe. Countless living beings were annihilated. Hongqin Saint's hair was disheveled, and his divine robe was torn. He looked extremely disheveled. Within the powerful light stood an extremely majestic figure. He was tens of thousands of meters tall, like a giant god that split the heavens and the earth apart. He was extremely majestic. "You little rascals! Don't you dare wreak havoc in the southern endless universe!" The giant god roared with all his might, causing the entire universe to tremble. Other than Hongqin Saint, there were no less than 10 imperishable stage cultivators scattered in all directions. They were all looking at the giant god in shock. Who is this guy? Such a terrifying imperishable stage cultivator. At that moment, I felt like my soul was going to be destroyed. Everyone, let's fight him together. No, this guy is too powerful. We are no match for him at all. Since when did South Boundless have such a powerful being? We must suppress him, or else our subordinates will all die a horrible death. The imperishable stage cultivators quickly came to an agreement. Hongqin Saint fought the giant god with them. In the distance, countless divine weapons were watching, and all of them had shocked expressions on their faces. Too powerful. Only at such a close distance could one feel how terrifying the giant god was. At the same time, 3 countless scouts immediately sent back the news. When the news reached the Star Hall, it was already a few days later. Xueqi immediately found the Ancestor Buddha and told him about it. "You want me to fight?" the Ancestor Buddha asked unhappily. Xueqi said seriously, "Do you want to improve further?" "Deal." The Ancestor Buddha immediately disappeared from the temple. Xueqi smiled and followed him back. With the Ancestor Buddha's help, it should be a piece of cake. Although the Ancestor Buddha had not completely learned the Constitution-defying Creation Sutra, he was already extremely powerful. His opponent was not like the ancient geniuses. The Ancestor Buddha should be able to suppress him easily. About 8 days passed. The Ancestor Buddha's voice came into the Star Hall. "It's done. That guy is one of the first batch of imperishable stage cultivators during the post-primeval sovereign era. He's quite powerful. I have already subdued him." Xueqi shook his head and laughed. This guy really knew how to act cool. But what surprised him was that the Ancestor Buddha could easily suppress an opponent that so many imperishable stage cultivators could not defeat. It seemed like the Ancestor Buddha had made great progress. Maybe he could really reach the eternity stage. After some thought, Xueqi came to the Ancestor Buddha's temple. The Ancestor Buddha was playing with a white jade bottle. Seeing Xueqi, he frowned and said, "Why did you suddenly appear? Don't you know to greet me outside?" Xueqi smiled and said, "Why? Are you plotting something behind my back?" The Ancestor Buddha snorted coldly and did not explain. Although he was already working for Xueqi, he still felt uncomfortable. He felt that he had lost his seniority. "Can you let me see that guy?" Xueqi asked. The Ancestor Buddha did not kill him, which meant that he was still valuable to the Ancestor Buddha. He also wanted to understand the difference between the first batch of imperishable stage cultivators during the post-primeval sovereign era. Chapter 1052. Facing Xueqi's request, the Ancestor Buddha fell silent. After hesitating for a while, he reluctantly raised his right hand. He flipped his palm, and a glass-like orb appeared in his palm. Within the orb was a creature. This person looked valiant and looked like Xueqi's demon god clone, Coiling Zhen. His eyes were closed, and he had fallen into a deep sleep. "His aura is so strange. It's completely different from other creatures," Xueqi said curiously. As expected, the Ancestor Buddha had a reason for subduing this creature. The Ancestor Buddha replied, "After the ancient sovereign opened up his great Tao, the boundless universe became empty. For some reason, a group of creatures appeared. They had the aura of the primordial creatures, but as the ancient sovereign's will changed, their descendants gradually became the current creatures." Xueqi was shocked and asked, "In other words, he's the ancestor of the current generation of creatures?" Such an existence had fallen to such a state. How lamentable. The Ancestor Buddha nodded, his gaze calm. He did not feel that there was anything wrong with it. "What do you want to do with him?" Xueqi could not help but ask again. He really wanted to know if this person came from the lawless region. With such an identity, It was impossible for him to stay in Southern Infinity for a long time. Moreover, he had not been destroyed by Hunyuan Heaven and Cardinal Heaven, which made no sense. The only possibility was that after Cardinal Heaven and Hunyuan Heaven escaped, he snuck into Southern Infinity from the lawless region. I have my own uses. I can't tell you, the ancestor Buddha replied. Zhou Xuanji smiled and did not ask any further. He said meaningfully, the lawless region is getting restless. I hope this fellow has nothing to do with the lawless region. The ancestor Buddha's pupils constricted, and his expression became unnatural. Zhou Xuanji immediately understood. It was indeed related to the lawless region. He did not continue to speak and turned to leave. The ancestor Buddha looked up at his back and frowned. Seeing that Zhou Xuanji was about to walk out of the temple, the ancestor Buddha hurriedly said, he indeed came from the lawless region. Looks like the ancient sovereign's great Tao is weakening. You need to be careful. Zhou Xuanji stopped and asked in confusion, why should I be careful? The ancestral Buddha ancestor had a complicated look in his eyes as he said faintly, because you know the ancestral voice, and you even know the more profound ancestral voice characters. To the lawless regions, you are a fatal attraction. Back then, when I comprehended the ancestral voice in the lawless regions, I was hunted down by them. The terrifying scene is still vivid in my mind. Zhou Xuanji was even more surprised. What kind of scene could make the Buddha ancestor feel fear? Anything else? Zhou Xuanji asked. This was the first time he found out that the ancestor Buddha had learned the ancestral sound from the forbidden region. This old man had a lot of experience. The ancestral Buddha hesitated and said, in any case, we just have to be careful. No one knows how many powerful existences and secrets are hidden in the lawless zone. Zhou Xuanji nodded and left. The ancestor Buddha lowered his head to look at the bead in his hand. The corners of his lips curled up into a strange smile. You cowards, just wait until I find the Supreme Being's opportunity. Then you'll all die. After conversing with the ancestral Buddha, Zhou Xuanji became even more interested in the lawless region. He wanted to go and check out the lawless region, but he felt that it was too dangerous. Now that the Sword Emperor Divine Court was attacking Nanwujin, he couldn't separate himself. If he was trapped in a lawless region and the Sword Emperor Divine Court encountered a powerful enemy, it would be bad if they didn't have a leader. Zhou Xuanji thought about it. If he was not here, no one under his command could hold the fort. The fire god of helplessness was too violent and unsuitable. The ancestral Buddha had said that he didn't want to interfere in too many things. Yuan Cheng, Jin Cheng, and the 12 divine lords weren't absolutely united. After returning to the Star Hall, Zhou Xuanji had been thinking about who to promote. He waved his right hand. Zhou Tanhua appeared in the hall out of thin air. He was stunned and looked at his father in surprise. He was in the middle of cultivating and was suddenly teleported here. It was so sudden that he forgot to greet. Do you want to be in power? Zhou Xuanji asked directly. Zhou Tanhua furrowed his brow. He immediately understood what his father meant. Father, you want to promote me so that I can help you control the divine court when you go out in the future? Zhou Tanhua asked directly. There was a hint of bitterness in his eyes. Zhou Xuanji stared at him and said, one day, someone will inherit my position. Zhou Tanhua fell into silence. After a while, he sighed and said, spreading out his hands, okay, as your son, I have always done whatever I wanted. I should share your burden. Zhou Xuanji smiled with satisfaction and immediately summoned Jin Cheng. Soon, Jin Cheng arrived. Greetings, Your Majesty, Sword Emperor. Jin Cheng knelt down and greeted. He glanced at Zhou Tanhua thoughtfully. He seemed to have guessed something. Zhou Xuanji did not waste any time and said, the star's domain is the center of the Sword Emperor Divine Court. I need you to help Tanhua integrate into this whirlpool of power. His status is equivalent to the sovereign court. Below the 12 divine monarchs were the 36 court sovereigns. Each of the Supreme Court paragons controlled an army of over 10 billion soldiers, and their power and influence were monstrous. Jin Cheng nodded and immediately guaranteed, I will definitely help young master establish himself quickly. He wasn't stupid. One day, Zhou Tanhua would succeed to the throne. Zhou Xuanji had many experts under him. His power would only continue to weaken. If he could help Zhou Tanhua ascend to the throne, then he would become Zhou Tanhua's confidant. Over the years, He had been in constant contact with Zhou Tanhua. They were still master and apprentice in name, even though he hadn't taught Zhou Tanhua anything. Zhou Tanhua took a deep breath and said, "Father, are you in a hurry to give me the position of venerable court as soon as I come up?" Zhou Xuanji comforted, "No hurry, I just trust you. I want to lead some of the multitude stars domain's divine army to the boundless south. Only with military results will I be able to establish myself quickly." Zhou Tanhua stated seriously. In troubled times, one must rely on strength to rise to the top. Zhou Xuanji hesitated for a moment before saying, "Okay, Jin Cheng will take him down to receive a battle order. Let him choose 2 venerable court sovereigns for him to use. Also, pass the order to Yuanqing of Nanwujin. Ask him to help out a little, lest someone offend his superior." Jin Qing immediately accepted the order. Zhou Tanhua saluted before the 2 quickly left. Zhou Xuanji continued to think. Should I leave some room for maneuver for my son? What if he died outside? What should I do? Thinking of this, Zhou Xuanji once again came to the ancestor Buddha's temple. "Why are you here again?" the ancestor Buddha asked in a deep voice. He looked vigilant. "This kid can't be thinking about the people in my hands, right?" Zhou Xuanji went straight to the point and said, "Protect my son in secret. If you encounter the first batch of post-ancient sovereigns, I will be at your disposal." Hearing this, the ancestor Buddha asked with a frown, "I just went out and came back. You are going out again?" "There is a higher realm above the ancestral voice. I will teach you personally," Zhou Xuanji said indifferently. "Really? Really? Okay." The ancestor Buddha immediately agreed. Then he asked, "What about your son?" Zhou Xuanji replied, "He is going to the boundless south to train. You will protect him in secret. Unless he is about to die, don't show yourself. Let him fight on his own." Chapter 1053. "Okay, when he sets off, I will follow him," the ancestor Buddha nodded. The ancestral Buddha nodded. His heart was itching. What is the higher realm above the ancestral sound? Zhou Xuanji asked curiously, "By the way, how many people in the endless universe do you think are your opponents? Is there anyone you can't defeat at all?" The ancestor Buddha replied, "There are at least more than 10 people who can be my opponents. There is no one I can't defeat at all. Such terrifying existences are usually hiding in the unfathomable regions. Their age is comparable to the long river of history." "More than 10? Zhou Xuanji was speechless. He thought that only the endless universe's overlords could rival the ancestor Buddha. He didn't expect there to be so many. It seemed that he had underestimated the endless universe. Zhou Xuanji shook his head with a smile before turning around and leaving. After he left, the ancestor Buddha took out the bead again and looked at the giant god inside. "Soon, I will reunite your clan," the ancestor Buddha said with a proud smile. His eyes flickered with hatred. After Zhou Tanhua received the order, he spent half a month settling his sect before leading 2 court sovereigns and 10 billion divine soldiers to southern infinity. Xian Xianghua was very excited after knowing about this. She wanted to follow her son to kill the enemy. Zhou Xuanji stopped her. "What a joke. What's the big deal with bringing an old mother to the battlefield?" Of course, he didn't say it directly. Otherwise, Xian Xianghua would definitely explode. The news of Zhou Tanhua's expedition to southern infinity spread quickly. This matter was widely spread. Under the deduction of a mysterious giant hand, Zhou Tanhua's fame rose sharply. Some said that he had a talent that surpassed the Sword Emperor. Some said that he was transformed from the Sword Emperor's sword heart. All kinds of rumors spread, and they were as outrageous as they could be. Gradually, Zhou Tanhua gained the aura of the top genius of northern infinity. There were exaggerated praises, but there were also disdain and contempt. Many creatures thought that Zhou Xuanji was building momentum for his son. If he needed to build momentum, it probably meant that Zhou Tanhua wasn't that strong. If he was really that outrageous, he would have long become famous in northern infinity. In any case, Zhou Tanhua's fame had risen. In the Star Hall, Zhou Xuanji listened to Jiang Shue's report with a smile on his face. Not long ago, Jiang Shue had already entered the Sword Emperor Divine Court's Intelligence Center. She had personally built momentum for Zhou Tanhua. "Not bad, this is the treatment of a real son," Zhou Xuanji said as he smiled. Jiang Shui rolled her eyes at him and said, "Why isn't Tanhua my son? I was the one who took care of him when he was young. His mother was a cultivation maniac. How could she have any martial arts?" Jiang Shui and Xian Xianghua were very strange. They pampered each other's children more than they pampered each other's children. This kind of tacit understanding had always kept their relationship very good, and there had never been any problems. "By the way, are we going to let little Xian go on like this?" Jiang Shui asked. Zhou Shaoxian had always been a headache to her. He felt that this girl had not grown up yet. Zhou Xuanji raised his brow and asked, "What do you want her to do?" Jiang Shui sighed. "You have to be more mature. If one day you decide to go somewhere else and never come back, who will support you?" Zhou Xuanji found it funny and asked, "Where can I go and never come back?" "Who knows? As the saying goes, there is always someone better than you. Maybe there is a vaster world waiting for you to explore, just like before. In the past, I could never imagine the existence of the endless universe because a mortal realm is the biggest. Maybe there is a celestial realm, but I didn't expect the celestial realm to be just a speck of dust, or even less than a speck of dust in the endless universe," Jiang Shui said worriedly. As she spoke, she walked up to Zhou Xuanji, sat on his lap, and hugged him. Zhou Xuanji gently patted her back and comforted her. "Don't think too much. No matter where I go, I will take you with me. After all, I have already integrated the Kunlun origin court into my soul. We will never be separated." Jiang Shui said softly, "I know, but I always feel a little uneasy in my heart, as if something big is going to happen next." "Something big?" Zhou Xuanji frowned. At their level of cultivation, they wouldn't ignore sudden disturbances in their hearts. It must be an indication of something. He continued to comfort Jiang Shui. The two hugged each other, enjoying this quiet happiness. A few hours later, Jiang Shui left. Zhou Xuanji created a doppelganger and asked it to use the fate manifestation technique on him. A thundercloud gathered above Zhou Xuanji's head. The thundercloud parted, and 3 silhouettes stood on it. Zhou Xuanji was astonished. He felt that the 3 silhouettes were very familiar. Weren't 2 of them Hunyuan Heaven and Cardinal Heaven? Could the other one be a Hongmeng Heaven from the previous generation? The 3 heavens raised their right hands and slapped at Zhou Xuanji. Bum! The throne under Zhou Xuanji shattered, and he fell to the ground. A horrifying aura enveloped him. Even with his eternal realm cultivation, he could barely stand up. How can it be? Zhou Xuanji's expression changed drastically. He looked at the 3 heaven silhouettes in shock. Under his gaze, the 3 heavens gradually merged together and formed a new silhouette, which was even more majestic. "Zhou Xuanji, you want to reverse everything. You will die a horrible death." A violent cry came, and Zhou Xuanji was dazzled by the shock. He tried to keep himself awake. "Who are you?" he asked with gritted teeth. "Zhou Xuanji, you want to reverse everything. You will die a horrible death." "Zhou Xuanji, you want to reverse everything. You will die a horrible death." "Zhou Xuanji, you want to reverse everything. You will die a horrible death." The other party cursed again and again, his words filled with endless anger. Zhou Xuanji immediately dispelled the out-of-soul doppelganger, and the fate manifestation technique ended. The 3 heavenly phantoms broke apart. The voice of the fire god came from inside the palace. "Are you all right?" Zhou Xuanji deeply breathed in and said, "I'm fine, I'm just cultivating a divine ability related to destiny." "Fate? Tsk, you still believe in fate?" There was a hint of mockery in lawless fire god's tone. With that, his aura disappeared. Zhou Xuanji came back to his senses and thought about what he said just now. Who was that person? Why did he say that he wanted to reverse everything? What did he reverse? The more Zhou Xuanji thought about it, the more he felt a headache. He was so shocked by the roar just now that he felt like his head was going to explode. He began to meditate and recited the unconstitutional creation scripture with his soul. Wait a minute. Defiant scripture of creation. Zhou Xuanji opened his eyes wide and shuddered instantly. Could it be that the Constitution Defiance creation scripture would give him some kind of mission? He thought about the primordial lord and the ancient sovereign. Why did those people who stood at the peak disappear? What kind of earth-shattering secret was hidden behind this? Zhou Xuanji did his best to calm his emotions. However, the more he thought about it, the more unsettled he felt. He immediately took out the Master Emperor door and asked the primordial Lord Spirit inside. "That's your fate. What does it have to do with me?" The primordial Lord Spirit replied. It was evident that he was still angry. He felt that what Zhou Xuanji did was disgraceful. Zhou Xuanji continued to ask, "Are there other mysteries hidden in the unconstitutional creation scripture?" The primordial Lord Spirit replied, "You will have to find out for yourself." Chapter 1054. No matter how Zhou Xuanji asked, the founder Lord Spirit refused to answer. Zhou Xuanji was helpless and could only take him back into the main Emperor's gate. Before disappearing, the eyes of the founder Lord Spirit were filled with hidden bitterness. After going through the destiny manifestation technique, Zhou Xuanji felt as if there was a stone hanging in his heart, and he could not put it down for a long time. However, when his soul began to recite the unconstitutional creation sutra, his uneasiness also disappeared. He began to cultivate in peace. Decades later, he was very excited that Yuan Cheng had rushed back. Zhou Xuanji woke up from his cultivation and asked Yuan Cheng to come in. After Yuan Cheng entered the palace, he knelt down emotionally, cupped his fists, and said, "My lord, a third of Nan Wujin is already under our control. The more the young master fights, the stronger he becomes. Not only is his cultivation soaring, but his name has also spread throughout Nan Wujin. His swordsmanship is unbelievably fast. Within the same realm, he is completely invincible." Zhou Xuanji was not surprised. Everything was within his expectations. He smiled and said, "What else?" Just this news alone was not worth Yuan Cheng coming back personally. A door has been discovered in the lawless region between the southern Endless and eastern Endless. It's suspected to be the Eternal God Door. Do you want to take a look? Yuan Cheng asked eagerly. Qin Zun had escaped from the Eternal God Gate, so there must be a great opportunity hidden inside. Although it was dangerous, it was also very attractive. Zhou Xuanji narrowed his eyes and asked, "Eternal God Sect, you're getting close?" Yuan Cheng shook his head and said, "I wouldn't dare. We've only sealed that part of the universe." Zhou Xuanji was thinking whether he should go and take a look. "That's right. How has Sovereign Qin been recently?" Zhou Xuanji asked. Since Qin Zun challenged Gu Juejiu last time, there was no news about him. Even the winner was uncertain. Yuan Cheng muttered, "I'm not sure. It should be a draw." The news has been suppressed. He had almost forgotten about Qin Zun. Although Qin Zun challenged experts everywhere, it didn't affect the Endless Forces much, so he ignored Qin Zun. Go and rest first. I will think about it before making a decision," Zhou Xuanji said softly. After the marriage was established, he bowed and left. He was very excited. Zhou Xuanji started to wonder if he should go and take a look at the Eternal God Gate. However, the Fire God had warned him not to seek out the Eternal God Gate. He thought about it and decided not to court death. Right now, he did not need the Eternal Divine Gates to strengthen himself. Regardless of whether it was him or the Sword Emperor Divine Court, they were enough to deal with any dangerous situations. He would not be able to summon the Fire God into the palace. The unstoppable Fire God appeared in the hall, still maintaining the form of a firebird, occupying the entire Stars Hall. He looked down at Zhou Xuanji and asked, "Boy, what's the matter?" "A mysterious gate that seems to be the Eternal God Gate has appeared," Zhou Xuanji said directly. Hearing that, the God of Flames frowned. "Regardless of whether it's real or fake, don't go there. Don't touch it, and don't look at it. None of the living beings who have seen the Eternal Gate of God have a good ending. It is the source of misfortune, the beginning of all tribulations. Although you have already reached the Eternal Realm, countless eternal beings have fallen because of it." Zhou Xuanji was shocked by his seriousness. Was the Eternal Gate of God that terrifying? Zhou Xuanji did not have any hope in his heart, and he immediately decided not to go to the Eternal God Sect. However, his curiosity towards the Eternal Gate of God grew stronger and stronger. Where did the Eternal God Gate come from? That's right, the 3 supreme fortuitous encounters came from the Eternal God Gate. Are they inside the Eternal God Gate, or are they scattered around the world? Zhou Xuanji continued to ask. He had always wanted to ask about this. No matter how chaotic the endless universe was, There had been no news of the sovereign's fortuitous encounter. When Zhou Xuanji first came to the Endless Universe, he had heard of the legend of the sovereign's fortuitous encounter. Almost all the creatures knew about it. The god of flame said unhappily, if it was so easy to find, the Endless Universe would have been unified long ago. After that, he disappeared from the hall, leaving behind wisps of dissipating flames. After 3 days, Yuan Cheng left with Zhou Xuanji's order. Retreat. Stay away from the Eternal God Gate. Boom. A figure was sent flying, crashing through a star comparable to the sun. He quickly stabilized his body. His body was shining with a golden light, and he was holding a long saber in each hand. His hair was disheveled as he glared at the enemy in front of him. How can it be? You broke through again. Zhou Tanhua. Who are you? The man glowing in golden light cried out in horror, his voice trembling. Zhou Tanhua charged over on a river of swords. His black hair fluttered in the wind, and his face was cold. At this moment, he resembled Zhou Xuanji. The person who will kill you. Just as Zhou Tanhua's voice fell, swords of light appeared around him out of thin air, piercing through the man glowing in golden light in the blink of an eye. All the stars in the entire universe shattered in an instant, turning into dust. In another space, the ancestor Buddha, sitting on the golden lotus, clicked his tongue in wonder. This kid's aptitude is getting more and more exaggerated. It seems that he has perfectly inherited his father's bloodline. When this war is over, he will break through again. However, there is something wrong with his eyes. They look a little familiar. He carefully observed Zhou Tanhua's eyes, trying to find out what secrets were hidden in them. Ever since Yuan Cheng received the order and left, Nan Wujin would send news of victory every month. Zhou Tanhua, like Zhou Xuanji, rose rapidly in the chaotic world. He showed his terrifying aptitude and solidified his title as the top genius in the Northern Universe. Zhou Xuanji would be overjoyed every time he heard news of Zhou Tanhua's victory. As a father, he was happier to see his son make a breakthrough than to see his own. It was a little embarrassing. Although Zhou Xuanji was getting stronger and stronger, his descendants and core team had never been able to keep up with him. Now that Zhou Tanhua had finally caught up, Zhou Xuanji felt very proud. It was worth mentioning that after Zhou Shaoxian learned of Zhou Tanhua's legend, she also asked to go to southern Wujin. Zhou Xuanji didn't stop her. He asked someone to take Zhou Shaoxian and her disciples to southern Wujin. Not long after, Zhou Tanhua's son, Zhou Tianyuan, also came to ask to go to southern Wujin. This time, Zhou Xuanji rejected him. Grandpa, why? Zhou Tianyuan asked excitedly. Zhou Xuanji calmly replied, you are too weak. Zhou Tianyuan's aptitude was also very strong and he often went into closed-door cultivation. However, he didn't know much about the endless universe. With his current strength, he would undoubtedly become cannon fodder if he went to southern Wujin. Hearing this, Zhou Tianyuan became anxious. Zhou Xuanji narrowed his eyes and immediately cast an illusion divine ability on him, letting him feel the endless war. Plop! Zhou Tianyuan collapsed to the ground, covered in sweat. Zhou Xuanji immediately deactivated the divine ability. Zhou Tianyuan woke up with a start and began panting heavily. At this moment, someone outside the hall asked to see him. Zhou Xuanji immediately let him in. The visitor was a divine lord. He had a dignified appearance and was exuding the domineering aura of an undying powerhouse. Your Majesty, a stone coffin was found at the northernmost edge of the northern infinity. All the soldiers within 10,000 miles of it were destroyed in body and soul. It is rushing to the northern infinity at an extremely fast speed, the Divine Lord reported in a deep voice with a solemn expression. Chapter 1055. Stone Coffin? Zhou Xuanji frowned. What was this? He asked. How long has it been? I'm not sure. We discovered it 3 days ago, and it's currently very close to the Sword Emperor Divine Court's territory, the Divine Monarch replied. The northern limitless north was very vast. Even though the Sword Emperor Divine Court had dominated the northern limitless north, they were unable to control every corner of the northern limitless north. So fast. Zhou Xuanji immediately got up and said, You can leave first, I'll go take a look. After saying that, he immediately jumped into the spiritless state. There was nothing valuable in the hole, and his 2 avatars were guarding the corners. He was not afraid that this divine lord would act recklessly. Xueqi spread out his eternal will and quickly located the stone coffin. The stone coffin exuded an unstoppable aura of destruction. Wisps of charred smoke were already rising around it. Looking from afar, Xueqi could vaguely see a hideous silhouette brandishing its claws and fangs, as though it was going to break the stone coffin and escape. The aura of the Tao of extermination. What is that? Xueqi was confused. He felt that this stone coffin was a little familiar. To be precise, the aura was very familiar. Apart from the Tao of extermination, there was another aura. As for the specifics, Xueqi opened his eyes wide in shock. Spirit of the Primogenitor Lord. Back then, when he used the constitutional defying creation scripture and the Tao of annihilation at the same time, the spirit of the Founder Lord had reminded him. At that time, the spirit of the Founder Lord had also emitted this kind of aura. Could it be that the one in the sarcophagus was the progenitor himself? Xueqi immediately accelerated. He wanted to see what was inside the sarcophagus. It probably wasn't a coincidence that the stone coffin was flying towards Bei Wuji. After a long while, Xueqi finally reached the stone coffin. He maintained the same speed as the stone coffin and carefully observed it. He also possessed the Tao of extermination, so he was not affected by the stone coffin. If it were an ordinary creature, it would be destroyed by the destructive aura of the sarcophagus once it got close. There's a heartbeat. Could it really be the primogenitor? Xueqi frowned and thought in horror. Why would the creator of everything appear now? Could it be the call of the eternal gate of God? Or perhaps he had attracted the attention of the progenitor after stepping into the eternal realm. Xueqi took out the suppressive legendary sword and used it to block the stone coffin. There was a loud bang. He couldn't resist at all and was directly taken away by the stone coffin. The stone coffin did not slow down but sped up instead. An irresistible force bound Xueqi, making it impossible for him to break free. What happened? Xueqi's expression changed. He immediately used the eternal will to try and stop the stone coffin, but it was to no avail. He was completely panicking. Ever since he learned the Constitution Defiance creation scripture, he had never been so flustered. Because this sarcophagus was most likely from the primogenitor who created everything. Xueqi gritted his teeth and fused the Constitution Defying creation scripture with the Tao of annihilation. In an instant, the sarcophagus shook violently, and cracks appeared on its surface, as if it could explode at any time. Seeing that there was hope, Xueqi immediately increased the fusion of the Constitution Defying creation scripture and Tao of annihilation. His aura exploded. A majestic aura swept across the entire northern boundless continent. Everyone was terrified. They all felt this pressure. However, everyone soon reacted. This pressure was exactly the same as when the Sword Emperor was explaining the Tao, but it was more than twice as strong. Did this mean that the Sword Emperor had broken through again? At this thought, all living beings became excited again. The stronger the Sword Emperor was, the safer they would be. Meanwhile, the stone coffin was suppressed by Xueqi, and its speed became slower and slower. Crack! The surface of the sarcophagus shattered completely. Strands of golden radiance seeped out from the cracks. Xueqi looked over and saw an eye. An extremely cold eye. Boom! A bronze-colored arm smashed the coffin lid. Xueqi immediately kept his sword and flew backward to keep his distance from the sarcophagus. Next, a silhouette smashed the coffin lid and sat up slowly. This person was like a golden man. Most of his body was dark and had a bronze-like texture. His lower body was covered in black scales while his upper body was bare. His muscles were defined and filled with power. His black hair hung loosely over his shoulders, and his eyes were extremely cold. His face was perfect, and there was not a single flaw to be found. He sat in the sarcophagus and looked at Xueqi coldly. What year is this? Who is the master? Xueqi asked with a frown. And who are you? You can call me Ancient Sovereign, the man replied without any emotion in his eyes. Ancient Sovereign. Xueqi opened his eyes wide in surprise. How could it be Ancient Sovereign? Didn't Ancient Sovereign fall? Xueqi tried his best to remain calm and replied, I don't know what year it is. Now, the boundless universe is divided into 4 directions, and no one is the master. Having heard that, Ancient Sovereign frowned and seemed to be displeased. Zhou Xuanji asked in confusion. You are the ancient sovereign who opened up the 4 directions? Why are you back? Ancient sovereign fell into deep thought and mumbled. Opened up the 4 directions? I didn't do it before. I don't know how I came back either. I slept for a long time and finally woke up. Then I saw you. He looked up at Zhou Xuanji and asked seriously, You know me? Zhou Xuanji saw that he looked like he had lost his memory and became wary. Is this guy faking it? Or is he just someone with the same name as Ancient Sovereign? There's a legend in the boundless universe about Ancient Sovereign. Zhou Xuanji told him everything he knew about Ancient Sovereign without hiding anything. Facing Ancient Sovereign who he could not see through, he chose to be honest. Once they started fighting, the Sword Emperor Divine Court might be in trouble. Ancient Sovereign listened attentively. After Zhou Xuanji finished, his frown deepened. I have no impression at all. But as far as I know, I'm Ancient Sovereign. Could it be that someone in the future is impersonating me? Ancient Sovereign said softly, as though he was talking to himself. Zhou Xuanji did not reply but looked at Ancient Sovereign silently. He really wanted to stab the truth sword into Ancient Sovereign's body to see what this guy was up to. To be able to master the Tao of Annihilation. He was definitely not an ordinary person. Since ancient times, powerful cultivators took their names very seriously. Very few people would use their ancestors' names. Of course, Ancient Sovereign was extraordinary. It was not impossible for him to have fanatical believers. Ancient Sovereign thought for a while before looking at Zhou Xuanji again and asked, You can help me wake up. Are you related to me? Zhou Xuanji hesitated and did not know how to answer. Are you my son? Or grandson? Descendant? Ancient Sovereign asked. Zhou Xuanji was speechless. If not for Ancient Sovereign looking so serious and confused, he would have thought that Ancient Sovereign was scolding him. You have descendants? He asked curiously. Ancient Sovereign flew into a rage and said with a deep voice, With my cultivation, how can I not have descendants? Let me see if you've inherited my legacy. After that, he slammed his palm toward Zhou Xuanji. Before the palm even touched Zhou Xuanji felt an unstoppable wall of qi slamming into him. He dodged it with his eternal will. Ancient Sovereign raised his brow and said with a smile, Not bad. Maybe you really are my son. Chapter 1056. Perhaps you really are my son. Gu Zun's word sounded so piercing to Zhou Xuanji's ears. He felt humiliated. He immediately activated his eternal will and prepared to fight with all his might. He could tell that Gu Zun didn't intend to kill him and only wanted to test his strength. Since that was the case, he would prove himself. The weak would not be respected by the strong. Zhou Xuanji held the suppressive legendary sword and the great enlightenment dark god in his hands. At the same time, he activated the sword fusion technique and entered an extraordinary state. He maintained his spiritless state and attacked Gu Zun at top speed. Gu Zun fought him with the sarcophagus in hand. The stone coffin was like a gigantic blade and was extremely heavy. When Zhou Xuanji's sword collided with it, he felt the weight and almost lost his grip. This fellow's strength was ridiculously strong. Gu Zun had shattered the lid of such a sturdy stone coffin with a single punch, so it was hard to imagine the extent of his strength. Zhou Xuanji started to unleash a divine ability of the way of the sword. His attacks were ever-changing, and he quickly gained the upper hand. Although Gu Zun was caught off guard, he wasn't injured. The smile on his face became even wider. He had a feeling that his son would eventually succeed. Zhou Xuanji did not like this smile and continued to increase his battle prowess. He didn't fuse the Constitution-defying creation scripture and the Tao of Annihilation. These were his life-saving means. This was just a spar. There was no need to risk his life. Zhou Xuanji let loose. Gradually, he forgot about his identity as Ancient Sovereign and fully focused on the battle. Gu Zun was his sparring partner. Although it was a battle, it was to nurture Zhou Xuanji's will to fight. The Eternal Will's fighting spirit. Every move seemed to contain some kind of secret. Zhou Xuanji's sword was taken away by Gu Sovereign's sarcophagus. Zhou Xuanji did not feel aggrieved. Instead, he felt very comfortable. He started to fuse the Constitution-defying creation scripture and the Tao of Annihilation. His aura surged once again. Gu Zun was moved. What is this? Why is it so familiar? Gu Zun murmured. He controlled the Tao of annihilation, but he didn't know about the scripture of creation. This vast aura seemed to be another extreme of the path of annihilation. He was even more interested in Zhou Xuanji. Where did this kid come from? My son is that strong? Gu Zun was surprised. He started to get serious and kept increasing his strength. No matter how fast Zhou Xuanji moved, his sword would follow Gu Zun's sarcophagus. Gu Zun's movements didn't look fast, almost as if he was taking his time. Sword light flashed, and a vast sword will isolated the entire universe. This place was filled with silver light, and Zhou Xuanji's eternal will was like a boundless ocean. After an unknown period of time, Zhou Xuanji woke up from this mysterious state. When he opened his eyes, he saw Gu Zun's scrutinizing gaze. His divine sword was still stuck to the stone coffin, unable to be separated. Zhou Xuanji took a deep breath and said with a complicated expression, "Thank you for your guidance, Senior." After fighting Gu Zun, he felt his eternal will grow stronger. He remembered that the spirit of the progenitor had said that there was more than one level of the eternal realm. In other words, Gu Zun was an existence that surpassed the first level of the eternal realm. For such an expert to suddenly descend upon the northern endless lands, it was unknown whether it was a blessing or a curse. What is the other power in your body? There's an aura of creation, asked Gu Zun curiously. Zhou Xuanji hesitated for a moment before replying, an extreme power that is the opposite of the Tao of extermination. He felt that he couldn't say the words, unconstitutional creation scripture, directly to avoid unnecessary trouble. Gu Zun fell into deep thought. Zhou Xuanji continued to ask, what do you want to do next? Gu Zun replied instinctively, to unify the boundless universe and reign supreme in all directions, of course. Zhou Xuanji's heart sank. Gu Zun came with ill intentions indeed. What do you want to do after you unify all directions? He continued to ask. If Gu Zun was a benevolent ruler, it would not be a big deal. Zhou Xuanji did not have the intention to rule the world, but he had no choice. He did not have much control over his power, and he did not even care about anything. What do I want to do? We will see when the time comes. I hope that everyone can please me, Gu Zun said indifferently. What if they can't please you? Then they will be destroyed. Won't that be too domineering? All living beings have their own thoughts, their own happiness, anger, sorrow and joy. So what? Gu Zun looked at Zhou Xuanji in confusion. He did not understand why Zhou Xuanji was asking about this. Zhou Xuanji frowned even more. He felt a headache coming on. He sighed and asked, you treat me as your son. Can you listen to my advice? No. Can a son persuade his father? Are you trying to turn the world upside down? Gu Zun snorted coldly. Zhou Xuanji almost vomited blood. This guy is poisonous. He gritted his teeth and asked, what if I stop you? Gu Zun's eyes turned cold as he said, then I will kill you. I can have more sons, but I cannot be in a bad mood. Zhou Xuanji was completely convinced. Did this guy really lose his memory? Just when he was about to speak, Gu Zun looked at him and asked, who is the most powerful in the current endless? Sovereign Qin, the genius of Gu Zun, Zhou Xuanji replied unpleasantly. Okay. Gu Zun disappeared, and so did the sarcophagus. Zhou Xuanji blinked. This guy only knew the name. How could he find someone? He wanted to chase after Gu Zun, but he could no longer sense his aura. He could only return. Although he had a breakthrough, he was not in a good mood. He had a feeling that Gu Zun's arrival would bring great trouble to all directions. He was filled with confusion. Where did Gu Zun come from? Before it was Sovereign Qin. Now it was Gu Zun. There must be some connection between the two. After returning to the stars field, Zhou Xuanji found Unable Fire God and told him about Gu Zun. The massive fireball's eyes lit up, and the fire god's voice came into Zhou Xuanji's ears. Don't see him again. Anyone related to him must die. Zhou Xuanji was intrigued. No fire god knew about this prime sovereign? Is he the creator of the four directions endless, ancient sovereign? Zhou Xuanji asked. Although the boundless universe wasn't created by Gu Zun, it was all thanks to him that the four directions boundless universe was formed. No, that guy has long since transformed into the boundless great Tao. The Gu Zun you met was his inner demon. He ran out in the past, wreaking havoc in all directions. Then, he was expelled by the Great Tao and disappeared into the depths of the boundless Great Tao. No one knows where he went. Every time he comes out, he's like a madman. Just ignore him. Zhou Xuanji heaved a sigh of relief. As long as there was someone who could restrain Gu Zun, that was enough. He continued, first it was Qin Zun, then Gu Zun. Do you think there's something fishy going on? He felt that this was too much of a coincidence. The lawless fire god replied, of course there are. But it doesn't matter. You've already achieved eternity, so there's no need to be afraid. As long as the boundless universe is not destroyed, you won't die. Zhou Xuanji rolled his eyes. What was he talking about? What if the boundless universe was destroyed? He suddenly remembered what happened to him in the future. The Sword Emperor was the one who created everything, which meant that the current four directions endless would be destroyed sooner or later. Of course, the future he went to might not be real. Chapter 1057. Go back and cultivate. I can feel that you've grown stronger. It must be because of the Prime Sovereign. Don't take it to heart and cut ties with him. Lawless Fire God reminded again, and Zhou Xuanji nodded. Since Fire God said so, he didn't have to worry about Gu Zun. After that, Zhou Xuanji turned around and returned to the Star's Palace. 100 years later, he had Gu Zun's whereabouts. Gu Zun found Gu Juejiao and easily defeated him, causing Gu Juejiao to be heavily injured and go into seclusion. Western Endless Army and Southern Endless immediately retreated to defend Western Endless. It was Jiang Shui who reported to Zhou Xuanji. She now had endless intelligence from all sides. The ancient sovereign's name was very important, so she had to come personally to tell Zhou Xuanji. Xuanji, is that person really Gu Zun? Jiang Shui asked worriedly. Gu Juejiao was heavily injured. Would Zhou Xuanji be next? Zhou Xuanji had the same status as Gu Juejiao after all. Zhou Xuanji shook his head and laughed. He then told him about Gu Zun's background. Jiang Shui's eyes widened in shock. You're the one who asked Gu Zun to deal with Gu Juejiao? The news has spread like wildfire in the outside world. Everyone is saying that Gu Zun is going to rule the world again. Zhou Xuanji smiled. He indeed wants to, but he will not succeed. Let him be. Soon, he will be judged by the true Great Tao of Ancient Sovereign. Gu Zun would probably deal with Qin Zun next. This was good as well. He could delay Qin Zun from finding trouble with him. That's right, Tanhua and Little Jade's battle in Southern Boundless is about to end. Should I summon them back? Jiang Shui changed the topic. As a mother, how could she not be worried about her children going out to fight? Zhou Xuanji smiled and said, let's wait a little longer. Now is the time of their glory. After the victory, we still have to win the hearts of the people. If we let them return now, wouldn't we be giving away the fruits of our labor to others? After such a long war, the divine generals must have a group of loyal subordinates. If Zhou Tanhua were to return now, those soldiers who wanted to join him might be intercepted. After all, Zhou Tanhua was Zhou Xuanji's son. Perhaps in the eyes of many people, they were very far away from Zhou Tanhua. Only by joining other divine generals could they get closer to Zhou Tanhua. Jiang Shui thought about it and felt that it made sense, so she didn't mention it again. She did not disturb Zhou Xuanji anymore and turned to leave. She continued to monitor the endless intelligence reports around her. Sitting on the throne, Zhou Xuanji's eyes sparkled. He could see Zhou Tanhua's situation. They were connected by blood, and Zhou Xuanji was in the eternal realm. He could easily see Zhou Tanhua's situation from afar. Not only Zhou Tanhua, but also Zhou Shaoxian and Zhou Tianyuan. This kid is really different from before. He has my style. Zhou Xuanji smiled with satisfaction. Although Zhou Tanhua looked as calm as before, his eyes were brimming with vigor, giving off an aura of fearlessness. At first glance, he already had the demeanor of a powerhouse, and was no longer the young man who was obsessed with cultivation. After watching for a while, Zhou Xuanji continued to cultivate. Although he was calm, the outside world was in turmoil. The appearance of a Gu Zun was even more shocking than the revival of a Cardinal Heaven expert. Even within the Sword Emperor Divine Court, everyone was discussing this matter. After Gu Zun defeated Gu Juejiao, He wreaked havoc in the western endless lands. Soon, it was revealed that Qin Zun had challenged Gu Zun. The two of them battled for a day and a night. In the end, Qin Zun was heavily injured and returned in low spirits. It was said that half of his soul was taken away. Zhou Xuanji was not surprised to hear about this. In his opinion, no matter how strong Qin Zun was, he could never be stronger than Gu Zun. From now on, it would be hard for Qin Zun to find trouble with him. Decades later, Zhou Tanhua came back. He walked into the Stars Hall with 2 court sovereigns and dozens of divine generals in a majestic manner. Zhou Tanhua had inherited Zhou Xuanji's handsomeness and temperament. Even Zhou Xuanji felt that Zhou Tanhua was really like him when he looked at him. Father, southern Wujin is basically under our control. Since the withdrawal of western Wujin's army, eastern Wujin has also begun to retreat one after another. Zhou Tanhua half knelt down and reported with cupped fists. His tone was neither arrogant nor humble. Zhou Xuanji smiled with satisfaction and said, "Well done. From now on, I confer you the title of Sword God Lord." Zhou Tanhua's cultivation was only one step away from the imperishable realm. In terms of real combat power, he was already comparable to an imperishable realm expert. Coupled with his achievements, the other divine lords had no reason to be dissatisfied. "Thank you, Father. Your son will not let you down." Zhou Tanhua didn't refuse and immediately agreed. This time, he had seen too many tragic scenes when he went to southern Wujin. Even in the endless universe, many creatures were suffering. He felt the need to save those who were suffering. He finally understood why Zhou Xuanji had come this far. The law of the jungle had already developed to the extreme in the boundless universe. All of you will listen to the divine swordsman from now on. As for the other rewards, I will get someone to send them to your residences. Zhou Xuanji said with a smile. Hearing this, Zhou Tanhua's men were extremely excited. Although they were loyal to Zhou Tanhua, Zhou Xuanji was still their highest faith. It was the same for everyone in the Sword Emperor Divine Court. The undefeatable Sword Emperor was the highest existence in the northern endless lands. "Thank you, Your Majesty the Sword Emperor." Everyone in the palace said in unison. It was the first time for many of them to see Zhou Xuanji, and even though they tried to restrain themselves, they could not hide their excitement. Zhou Xuanji comforted him a few more times before asking Zhou Tanhua to take the others to rest. When he was the only one left in the hall, he rubbed his chin and smiled. "Not bad, not bad. In the future, no matter where I go, this kid can support me." Zhou Xuanji mumbled. Staying in the Stars Palace for a long time was too boring for him. He still wanted to go out and explore. The boundless universe was so big, but he still hadn't explored all of it. There was also the mysterious uncharted zone that attracted him. That day, Zhou Xuanji asked Jincheng to summon the Sword Emperor Divine Court and confer Zhou Tanhua the title of the 13th Divine Lord, Sword Divine Lord. When this news spread, the Sword Emperor Divine Court was in an uproar. This time, there were no voices of doubt. Over the past hundreds of years, Zhou Tanhua's victories had been continuously reported. In the hearts of all living beings, he was already the #1 Heaven's Chosen One in the north. His talent was not inferior to his father's. Even Zhou Tanhua's son, Zhou Tianyuan, had received a lot of attention because of this. The Sword Emperor's talent was world-shaking. Since his son was like this, no matter how bad his grandson was, he wouldn't be too bad. On the Astral River stairway, Zhou Xuanji and Xian Xianghua walked side by side. Xian Xianghua curled her lips and said, "This brat is truly awe-inspiring, but he's too low profile. If it was me, I would definitely be high-spirited." Zhou Xuanji smiled and said, "Of course, he's my son. Luckily, he's not like you." Xian Xianghua turned around and glared at him. Although she was complaining, her heart was filled with pride. "My son is not bad." She used to worry about whether Zhou Tanhua would feel pressured when he grew up because Zhou Xuanji was just too heaven-defying. Now, it seemed that she had worried too much. Her son's innate talent was also ridiculously strong. Chapter 1058. Zhou Xuanji and Xian Xianghua continued to walk the Star River stairs, chatting as they walked. The Star's domain was even more spectacular than before. Many powerhouses moved their great worlds here to decorate the universe and paint this magnificent scenery of the Star River. "How's your mortal fate?" Zhou Xuanji asked. He asked Xian Xianghua, mortal sovereign, and Shen Yanqing to work together to spread the mortal qi and condense the fate of all living beings in the Sword Emperor Divine Court. By then, the stronger the Sword Emperor Divine Court, the stronger the fate of all living beings. One's glory, one's loss, one's loss. Although the harm was great, the benefits were also great. With the Sword Emperor Divine Court's fate, the cultivation of all living beings would be smoother. Zhou Xuanji had the confidence to protect the Sword Emperor Divine Court. In fact, the other 3 Endless Worlds Overlord level forces did the same. Some fell and some flourished. The mortal qi that Zhou Xuanji chose was not too strong. If he encountered a calamity, it could be resolved. Although it would cause a backlash to all living beings, the impact was not great. It's okay. Sovereign and the others have already gone to Southern Endless. I'm preaching in Northern Endless, Xian Xianghua replied with a smile. It was much better to have something to do than to cultivate in seclusion. And this was a great contribution. Once it was done, she would become famous in the Sword Emperor Divine Court. Deep down, she was still the Xian Xianghua who pursued the world's top cultivator. Zhou Xuanji nodded and said, "Be careful these days. There are always some strange things popping up out of nowhere." Xian Xianghua nodded. She had also heard about Gu Zun. He defeated Gu Juejiu and Qin Zun easily. His strength was indeed terrifying. The two chatted for a while, and Zhou Xuanji decided to accompany Xian Xianghua to preach. Come to think of it, the two had not been alone for a long time, or rather, traveled together. Back then, he was just a child, and Xian Xianghua was the world's top demon. And now, he had become someone she could rely on. The mystery, excitement, and anxiety at that time had disappeared. Zhou Xuanji still missed that feeling occasionally. Of course, it was just nostalgia. He didn't want to go back. 130 years later, the Sword Emperor Divine Court announced that Southern Endless was under the control of the Divine Court. When this news came out, it shocked the entire boundless universe. Although the Sword Emperor Divine Court's domination of the southern boundless continent was already set in stone, no one had expected it to happen so quickly. Zhou Xuanji's growth was too legendary. Grow fast, grow high. Since ancient times, no one in the long river of history could compare to him. Zhou Xuanji sent 5 divine lords to clean up the mess, including some trusted aides in the Kunlun Origin Court. Xiao Jinghong, Zhao Congjian, Huang Lianxin, Bei Xiao Wangjian and the others were sent to take charge. As the outside world was in an uproar, Zhou Xuanji returned to the Kunlun Origin Court to visit Daoya Old Man and his mother, Lady Zhao Xian. "Xuanji, you've just taken control of Nan Wujin. Aren't you going to take a look for yourself?" Daoya Old Man asked curiously. He looked at Zhou Xuanji with curiosity in his eyes. Just how strong was this brat now? Lady Zhao Xian cupped her face in her hands and looked at Zhou Xuanji dotingly. In the past, she would never have imagined that her son would reach such heights. Zhou Xuanji smiled and said, "I have to get someone else to do it. If I have to do everything myself, how weak would the foundation of this Sword Emperor Divine Court be?" Lady Zhao Xian also said, That's right, that's right. The boundless universe is not the northern wilderness. Even the Kunlun Origin Court is just a grain of sand in the boundless universe. If Xuanji has to run around in such a massive region, won't he die of exhaustion?" Seeing this mother and son pair echo each other, Daoya Old Man helplessly shook his head. Zhou Xuanji put away his smile and said, "In actuality, I'm still a bit confused. I hope you can guide me." Daoya Old Man and Lady Zhaoxian were stunned. How could Zhou Xuanji be confused? He did not know how to unify the Western Boundless and Eastern Boundless. Zhou Xuanji continued to say, "My current accomplishments are already very high, but I always feel that this is not suitable for me. I want to go out and explore the unknown impassable regions, but if I go, I might not come back for a long time." Even though he was used to bitterly cultivating, that did not mean he liked this kind of life. Daoya Old Man and Lady Zhaoxian fell silent. They knew what the impassable regions represented. They instinctively wanted to dissuade him, but seeing Zhou Xuanji's calm expression, their words were stuck in their throats. Zhou Xuanji rarely came back to see them, and now that he had come back with great difficulty, they could not easily answer his questions. "If you want to go, then go. As long as you settle down the Sword Emperor Divine Court," Daoya Old Man said seriously. Lady Zhaoxian felt quite startled and wanted to dissuade him, but she did not know how. With Zhou Xuanji's cultivation and accomplishments, what right did she have to dissuade him? Even though she was worried about Zhou Xuanji's safety, she also wanted him to be happy and not be so preoccupied. Didn't he say that he has already become an eternal being? At most, he will come back a bit later. Before you leave, you have to explain this to your wife and children, Daoya old man said as he waved his hand. Thinking about it, Zhou Xuanji was this kind of person. He was never fixed to a single place and loved to wander about. Even though he often had no choice, he still enjoyed it. Lady Zhaoxian sighed and said, "All right, do as you wish. However, you have to be careful outside. After all, there are always people more powerful than you out there." Zhou Xuanji nodded and smiled as he said, "Don't worry, even if I leave it won't be now." He began to talk about the boredom he had felt over the past few years. Recently, he no longer enjoyed closed-door cultivation and was always wandering around. Daoya old man and Lady Zhaoxian listened while looking at each other. It turned out that he had been wondering about this for a long time. The unreachable region. The dark universe was shrouded in a boundless gray fog, and a massive gate glowing with blue light stood tall. A figure broke through the gray fog and walked over. This person was a Cardinal Heaven. The Cardinal Heaven was wearing a black robe. His face was a little pale, and he was no longer as arrogant as before. He looked at the massive gate glowing with blue light with excitement on his face. "Found it. Finally found it." The Cardinal Heaven mumbled to himself, his voice trembling. A vague soul rose from behind him, and the voice of Hunyuan Heaven came. "Are we really going to do this?" The Cardinal Heaven snorted. "What else can we do? Now that our reputation has been ruined, do you still want to live?" Hunyuan Heaven was silent. "This is the Eternal God Gate. The founder and sovereign Gu have been inside before, and that's why they could create eternal achievements. If we succeed, we will be able to unify the endless world. At that time, let alone Sovereign Qin, even Sovereign Zhao, Sovereign Wang, and Sovereign Tang will be a joke." The Cardinal Heaven said in a deep voice, suppressing his excitement. His eyes were filled with fanaticism. He could not wait to rush into the Eternal God Gate. He was getting closer and closer to the Eternal God Gate. At this moment a voice came. "You are courting death." The Cardinal Heaven looked back in horror and cried out, "Why are you here?" Chapter 1059. Zhou Xuanji did not know that a Cardinal Heaven expert had already gone to search for the Eternal God Gate. He was currently dealing with the unification of Northern Endless and Southern Endless. The two sides had fought for many years, and it was very difficult for them to completely fuse. Zhou Xuanji was discussing with the Divine Lords in the Stars Palace. Most of the time, it was the Divine Lords talking. Yuan Cheng and Jin Cheng had also returned and were also participating in the discussion. Zhou Tanhua stood at the side, occasionally giving advice, but most of the time, he just listened quietly. There was nothing he could do about this. He was only suited to lead an army into battle and cultivate. Zhou Xuanji was also analyzing in detail. Yuan Cheng had proposed to unify the southern lands. Jin Cheng felt that they could first restore stability before gradually gathering the various powers of southern lands. Southern Limitless was huge, and if he wanted to subdue it, he would need to expend a large amount of manpower and resources. All right, how about this? Build a large number of teleportation formations at the border of the two endless realms, and the two endless realms will each select a batch of realms to exchange, thus facilitating the fusion of the two endless realms. Send some of the rulers of the northern endless realms to the southern endless realms, and select some powerful beings from the southern endless realms to rule the northern endless realms. Zhou Xuanji said, interrupting the Divine Lord's conversation. This suggestion was made by a Divine Lord, and it received the approval of a portion of the people. As soon as he spoke, the debate came to an end. What the Divine Lords wanted was for Zhou Xuanji to make the final decision. No matter what the plan was, Nanwu Jin was already in their control. After Zhou Xuanji made the decision, Yuan Cheng and Jin Qing immediately took action. Also, we have to pay close attention to the lawless regions around the two sides. It won't be long before the lawless regions launch an attack on the endless universe. The lawless regions are our true enemies. Zhou Xuanji said seriously as he looked at the Divine Lords. Then, he explained the specific arrangements. After speaking for 4 hours, he finally let the Divine Lords leave, leaving Zhou Tanhua behind. "Father, what's the matter?" Zhou Tanhua asked with a puzzled look on his face. "There shouldn't be anything for him to do now." Zhou Xuanji waved his hand and signaled for him to come up. Without hesitation, Zhou Tanhua quickly came to Zhou Xuanji's side and bent down. "If I asked you to take over the Sword Emperor Divine Court, would you dare?" Zhou Xuanji looked straight at him and asked calmly. Upon hearing this, Zhou Tanhua's heart thumped. He asked cautiously, "Father, are you joking?" Even though he had already transformed, he did not dare to imagine that he would be able to control such a huge Sword Emperor Divine Court. The pressure was enough to suffocate him. Zhou Xuanji smiled and said, "Don't worry, there will be people to assist you. I want to go out for a walk, but the Sword Emperor Divine Court needs someone to oversee it." He was not worried that his son would make him a mere figurehead. That would be even better. He would be able to travel with peace of mind. "Where do you want to go?" Zhou Tanhua asked with a frown. "Unreachable area." Zhou Tanhua's pupils shrank and he instantly fell silent. After fighting for so many years in the southern endless lands, his knowledge and experience had far surpassed what he had experienced in the past. He already had a certain level of understanding towards the lawless regions. He knew how unfathomable and dangerous the lawless region was. "Is it because of the eternal divine gate?" Zhou Tanhua asked. Zhou Xuanji shook his head and said, "I don't intend to touch that thing, and you should do the same in the future. Stay away from it. I just want to see how many unknown regions are hidden in the lawless region." Now that Northern Boundless and Southern Boundless have been united, Eastern Boundless and Western Boundless have suffered great losses. They will not come to us for the time being. If there's anything, I have so many subordinates who can help you strategize. I will also leave a clone behind to support you. Zhou Tanhua wanted to say something but hesitated. He really wanted to refuse, but he could hear the expectation in Zhou Xuanji's tone. From the day Zhou Xuanji supported him, he had a premonition that this day would come. It was just that he didn't expect this day to come so soon. "Don't worry, there is still some time before I leave. I will tell you in advance. Next, I will ask Yuanqing to take you to familiarize you with the various power points of the Sword Emperor Divine Court," Zhou Xuanji said with a smile. Next, he pulled Zhou Tanhua aside and told him about his childhood. In the past, Zhou Xuanji had always treated Zhou Tanhua as a child because this kid maintained the appearance of a teenager. But now, he had changed his mind and turned into an adult. He looked exactly the same as Zhou Xuanji. Zhou Tanhua, on the other hand, felt a little upset in his heart. It was as if Zhou Xuanji was about to disappear. After chatting for a long time, Zhou Xuanji finally let him go. "He has really grown up," Zhou Xuanji muttered to himself. Zhou Xuanji mumbled to himself. His emotions were a little complicated. Although he had always been protecting his children, he suddenly felt that he was a little ashamed to be a father. After 180 years, Northern Boundless and Southern Boundless had merged together. The two sides had opened a space-time channel, allowing creatures to come and go freely. A behemoth was rising. All living beings in the Sword Emperor Divine Court were also excited by the power of the Divine Court. All of them were cultivating hard. Zhou Xuanji first preached the ancestral voice to Nan Boundless. He used the ancestral voice of 20 years to buy the hearts of all living beings. After that, he helped Zhou Tanhua familiarize himself with everything in the Sword Emperor Divine Court. Without anyone noticing, he quietly left. Not only him, but also Jiang Shui. Jiang Shui gave up her authority to gather intelligence and resolutely followed Zhou Xuanji, saying that she wanted to live and die with him. Zhou Xuanji didn't refuse. Once he encountered danger, he could put Jiang Shui into his soul world. After leaving Northern Boundless, Jiang Shui became lively. She always had a smile on her face. "Are you that happy? You keep smiling?" Zhou Xuanji asked in a bad mood. Jiang Shui giggled and said, "Of course, we haven't wandered together for a long time." In her memory, what she missed the most was always when they were young. She and Zhou Xuanji depended on each other. At that time, she could still take care of Zhou Xuanji. Now, she wanted to take care of Zhou Xuanji, but Zhou Xuanji didn't have such a need. "Keep smiling. Maybe you will cry if I suddenly die," Zhou Xuanji said in a bad mood. Although he was scolding her, His face was still full of smiles. He was actually quite happy to have Jiang Shui's company. After all, she was the closest person to him. The two held hands and moved forward. A ray of light appeared at the end of the universe in front of them. It quickly expanded and was extremely spectacular. Xueqi immediately took Jiang Shui into his soul world. He then took out the suppressive sword and prepared to fight. "Is this sword Emperor Xueqi?" A loud and domineering voice came. Xueqi saw a figure rushing over. He was extremely fast. If he hadn't already stepped into the eternal realm, he might not have been able to detect this person's speed. Soon the man stopped. Xueqi took a closer look. This person was covered in flames. His face was wild and his smile was very sinister. His body was as strong as an iron tower. He looked at Xueqi and said with a smile, "The elder guessed that you would come. He specially asked me to invite you." "Elder?" Xueqi was surprised. The news of him leaving hadn't been leaked. The elder said that a sword emperor who will unify the four boundless directions will come during this period. "He asked me to invite you with great hospitality," the man continued. Chapter 1060. Xueqi hesitated for a while and decided to follow the flaming man to meet that elder. He could use this opportunity to learn about the lawless region's factions. Although everyone knew about the lawless region, and the Sword Emperor Divine Court had sent spies to search for it, the lawless region was still unknown. Even the powerful lawless fire god did not dare to act recklessly in the lawless region. "Our elder is looking forward to meeting you. He must be very happy that you can come." Along the way, the flaming man was very friendly and treated Xueqi as an esteemed guest. Xueqi replied with a smile and did not put on any airs. The two traveled swiftly in the lawless region's universe. A few hours later, they came to a patch of black light. After passing through the black light, the front was extremely bright. Xueqi came to another world. It was radiating with boundless radiance and layers of clouds. At the end of the sky there was a massive city. It was extremely majestic, and halos surrounded the city. This place. Xueqi's expression changed. He could clearly sense a vast power permeating this world. More accurately, it was will. Eternal will. He did not expect to encounter an eternal cultivator so soon. The lawless region was indeed filled with crouching tigers and hidden dragons. No wonder the lawless region could penetrate all directions without being devoured by Primeval Sovereign's great Tao. A powerful being that was not inferior to Primeval Sovereign was hiding here. Under the flaming man's lead, Xueqi quickly entered the city. The city was huge, but there were not many living beings in it. Although there were not many, Xueqi could sense the powerful aura of the living beings. Even the weakest one was at the imperishable stage. How can it be so powerful? Xueqi frowned. He was fearful of the lawless region. Just this world alone was enough to shake all directions. Soon, they flew into a tall tower. This tower was magnificent. After entering the gate, they were greeted by 2 rows of majestic golden god statues. They were in different postures and looked like afterimages. Along the way, Xueqi saw an old man who was tens of thousands of meters tall. He sat on a chair and did not move an inch. Xueqi flew up and met the old man's gaze. "Senior, are you the elder of this world?" he asked. The flaming man bowed to the 30,000-meter-tall old man before turning around and leaving. The 30,000-meter-tall elder opened his eyes and gave an amiable smile as he said, "Sword Emperor Xueqi, I've long since been looking forward to meeting you." Xueqi asked curiously, "You've seen me before?" "I haven't, but you're the only existence in the boundless universe who has attained eternity. You have hope of standing shoulder to shoulder with Prime Sovereign, and you might even be able to surpass him. That's because your body hides a secret that even I can't see through," the 100,000-foot-old man said with a mocking tone. Xueqi's heart jolted. Could he see the supreme legendary sword system? "You do not need to think too much about it. I do not have any malice towards you. On the contrary, I only have goodwill towards you. I wish to cooperate with you," the 10,000-old man continued. Cooperation? Xueqi became wary. With their cultivation, how could they work together? It was most likely related to the boundless universe. "That's right. I want to return to the boundless universe with my people. However, the will of the ancient sovereign rejects us. If you are willing to help us, the Chong God tribe is willing to protect the divine court of the Sword Emperor, the old man said seriously. As expected, Zhou Xuanji did not agree immediately but began to analyze the pros and cons. He did not know much about the Chong God tribe. What if these fellows started to run amok after entering the Sword Emperor Divine Court? With the strength of the Sword Emperor Divine Court, they would not be able to stop them. The 30,000-meter-old man did not disturb Zhou Xuanji and allowed him to think seriously. A while later, Zhou Xuanji looked up and said, "Sorry, I cannot agree because I do not know you people well enough." They were both at the eternal stage, so he was not afraid of the 30,000-meter-old man acting recklessly. Having heard this, the 30,000-meter-old man was not enraged. Instead, he smiled and said, "It's good to be cautious. How about this? Why don't you stay with us for a while? You can tell me what you want." Zhou Xuanji muttered, "I want to understand the lawless region's current situation and the distribution of factions." The 30,000-meter-old man squinted his eyes and said meaningfully, "The lawless region is very deep. Even I do not know how many gods are hidden there. What I can tell you is that ever since the boundless universe was born, all the gods have left their descendants in the lawless region. This is for eternal inheritance. Maybe even the primogenitor's bloodline exists here." Gods? What was a god? Could it be that the god race represented a type of power? When you reach level 2 eternal will, your descendants will gradually transform into the bloodline of the god race that belongs to you, the 30,000-meter-old man explained. Zhou Xuanji was shocked in his heart. This meant that the 30,000-meter-old man had at least reached level 2 eternal will? Or even more powerful. Most importantly, there were countless of such beings. How terrifying would that be? Zhou Xuanji shuddered at the thought of it. He suddenly felt that he was so insignificant. The endless battles around him were a complete joke. It's not as exaggerated as you think. We are all ants that live without purpose. All the god races can only survive in the cracks of the boundless universe by working together, the 30,000-meter-old man said with a smile, shaking his head. Zhou Xuanji was even more confused. Was the ancient sovereign that powerful? The ancient sovereign obtained the sovereign's serendipity. Do you understand now? The 30,000-meter-old man continued. Sovereign's serendipity. Zhou Xuanji was shocked in his heart. Obtaining the sovereign's serendipity could suppress all the god races? That was too exaggerated. Although the supreme legendary sword system was powerful, it was not to such an outrageous extent. Sword Emperor, do you have the sovereign's serendipity too? The 30,000-meter-old man asked with a smile. His smile became unfathomable, and no one could guess what he was thinking. Zhou Xuanji shook his head and said, "Obtaining the sovereign's serendipity can unite the boundless universe. Do you think I did it?" "True." The 30,000-meter-old man nodded and stopped smiling. After that, Zhou Xuanji exchanged some pleasantries with him before leaving. After walking out of the Golden Tower, Zhou Xuanji bumped into the Flaming Man. "Lord Sword Emperor, let me arrange a place for you to stay," the Flaming Man said with a smile. Zhou Xuanji nodded. He wanted to know more about the Chong God race. Half an hour later, Zhou Xuanji landed in a courtyard surrounded by mountains and forests. It was quite secluded. "If you have any instructions, just call out my name. You can call me Cracked Frost," the Flaming Man said with a smile. After that, he transformed into a ball of flames and left quickly. Cracked Frost? What an interesting name. Just when Zhou Xuanji was about to enter the house, a head popped out from behind the wall. It was a young girl who looked to be only 15 or 16 years old. She was quite pretty. "Pust!" she hissed at Zhou Xuanji and signaled him to turn around. Zhou Xuanji looked at her and smiled. "What's the matter?" Imperishable stage. Just one step away from the eternal stage. This young girl must not be simple. The young girl leaped into the courtyard. She wore a blue dress with a lotus flower, and her hair was let down naturally. She stared at Zhou Xuanji and said mysteriously, "You came to the wrong place." Chapter 1061. Why do you say that? Zhou Xuanji asked with a smile. The young woman replied, "The Chong God tribe is filled with resentment towards the lawless region. They're just enduring silently." Zhou Xuanji became even more curious. He looked at the girl closely. Could it be that she didn't belong to the Chong God tribe? Of course I'm from the Chong God race. However, my status is very high, so I can say whatever I want. They wouldn't dare to blame me, the young woman giggled. She walked up to Zhou Xuanji and circled around him. Tisk. TSK. You're probably not even 20,000 years old yet. Your soul is really tender. You've already attained the eternal realm at such a young age. Amazing. The girl continued to smile as she looked at Zhou Xuanji in amazement. Zhou Xuanji was very calm and was not affected by her gaze. Do I leave now? He asked. It better be so. Having heard this, Zhou Xuanji began to weigh the pros and cons. The lawless region was so vast that he didn't necessarily have to learn about it from the Chong God tribe. Although this girl could be lying, it wouldn't do him any harm to leave now. After thinking about it, Zhou Xuanji nodded and said, Thank you for the reminder. I'll take my leave now. He turned around and prepared to leave. Remember, if you manage to come into contact with the Supreme's opportunity, you must not expose it no matter what. Also, do not bring it near the Eternal God Gate. Something terrible will happen. The young lady said seriously. Zhou Xuanji shook his head and laughed. He waved his hand and directly entered spiritless mode, leaving the Chong God race's world. As soon as he left, the face of the old man appeared in the sky above the courtyard. The girl raised her head and giggled at the old man. The old man frowned. He sighed worriedly and said, Why? The girl looked up and said, The eternal God should stay far away from the outside world. This is good for both of us. Have we not gotten used to our current lives? You don't understand. The old man faintly said. After he finished speaking, his face disappeared. All clansmen, listen up. Chase after Sword Emperor Zhou Xuanji and capture him at all costs. The old man's voice rang out once more, resounding through the entire world. There was a loud bang. The giant city shook as waves of boundless and terrifying aura erupted. Within the space-time kaleidoscope, Zhou Xuanji heard the 30,000-meter-tall elder's voice and shook his head. It seemed like the divine race could not be trusted. He immediately sped up, and the kaleidoscopes around him turned pale. It looked like they had sunk into nothingness, but in reality, his speed had already reached its limit. Even an eternal existence would find it difficult to catch up to him. After all, he had attained the eternal realm in the spiritless state. After flying for several hours, Zhou Xuanji exited the godly state, and he appeared in a vast sea of stars. At first glance, it looked a bit like the Milky Way. Very beautiful. Zhou Xuanji spread out his will to examine this starry sea. There was nothing out of the ordinary. It looked like there weren't any eternal gods around. Zhou Xuanji let Jiang Shui out, and she asked him what had happened out of curiosity. He did not hide it from her. After listening to him, Jiang Shui frowned. Jiang Shui sighed and said, Next time, don't be so rash and enter deep into the enemy's territory alone. If it wasn't for the reminder from a noble, you would be in deep trouble now. Zhou Xuanji shook his head and smiled. Don't worry, they can't trap me. My eternal realm is for escaping. It's better to be careful. Nothing is absolute. Okay, I'll listen to you, okay? That's more like it. The two of them chatted and laughed as they advanced. This time, Zhou Xuanji had no specific goal. He just wanted to look around and understand the lawless region. To be on the safe side, Zhou Xuanji split out hundreds of avatars in all directions and kept a distance from them. If anything happened, he would know in advance. The lawless region was much more dangerous than the endless universe. The starry sky was filled with space-time storms. Such storms contained power that was not inferior to the imperishable realm. Once swept into them, most living beings would be destroyed in both body and soul. With Zhou Xuanji's protection, Jiang Shui could easily travel through the space-time storms without being affected. Zhou Xuanji discovered a formless will hidden in the depths of the space-time storms. Eternal will. Could these space-time storms be left behind by an eternal existence? Zhou Xuanji thought to himself. The space-time storms were everywhere. It should not be intentional. Could it be that the eternal existence had already fallen, and his will was scattered and wreaking havoc in the lawless region? Zhou Xuanji felt that this was most likely the case. An eternal existence must have fallen because they encountered a more powerful force. Zhou Xuanji thought about it deeply and immediately shuddered. How powerful was the lawless region? If there's no other way, let's go back. At least the great Tao is protecting us, Jiang Shui said. She could see the fear in Zhou Xuanji's eyes. Zhou Xuanji was rarely so fearful of someone. Having heard her, Zhou Xuanji shook his head and said with a smile, "That's better. You can return to my soul and cultivate first. I found something and want to take a look." Jiang Shui nodded hesitantly. Zhou Xuanji stored her into his soul world. Then, he entered the spiritless mode and disappeared. The next moment, Zhou Xuanji stopped in a pitch-black space. He raised his hand and grabbed. A black crystal appeared in his hand. "What's this?" he mumbled curiously. He probed into the black crystal with his eternal will. Boom! A violent energy exploded and resisted Zhou Xuanji's eternal will. He opened his eyes abruptly in shock. Such a powerful energy. He immediately began collecting the black crystals. He could sense that there were many more black crystals like this around him. A while later, an aura came swiftly, and he looked back in shock. His expression turned strange. The person who came was someone he knew. Gu Juejiao. Why did this guy appear here? Gu Juejiao noticed Zhou Xuanji too. He stopped immediately with a deep frown. "Zhou Xuanji," he said with gritted teeth. Murderous intent shot out from his eyes. He could not wait to attack immediately. But he knew that Zhou Xuanji had already surpassed him. Back when Gu Zun bullied him, he mentioned Zhou Xuanji. Zhou Xuanji did not know that Gu Zun sold him out. "Why are you here?" He looked at Gu Juejiao and asked. "I should be the one asking you." Gu Juejiao snorted coldly. He was thinking about how to kill Zhou Xuanji. "I came to the lawless region to take a look. I realized that the eternal gods here are all very powerful. We can't compare to them at all." Zhou Xuanji sighed in amazement. At the same time, he reminded Gu Juejiao that they could only resist the lawless region together. Gu Juejiao's face turned even more unsightly. He seemed to have thought of something. He clenched his fists, and his body trembled. "Let's work together." He stared at Zhou Xuanji and asked with a deep voice. "How?" "I'm here to find the sovereign's serendipity. Let's work together and share it." "Can we share the sovereign's serendipity?" "Of course." Back then, Gu Zun shared the sovereign's serendipity with others, which is why the lawless region exists today. Or else, with Gu Zun's power back then, the lawless region would not have appeared. Chapter 1062. Sharing the Supreme Opportunity. Zhou Xuanji fell into hesitation. Should he work with Gu Juejiao? He felt that Gu Juejiao would not be so sincere. However, he was in the eternal realm, while Gu Juejiao was just an undying existence. The difference in their realms was like heaven and earth, so he didn't need to be afraid. "All right, do you know where the Supreme Opportunity is?" Zhou Xuanji promised and asked. Gu Juejiao's eyes flickered. "Yes, have you heard of the Eternal God Gate?" Having heard this, Zhou Xuanji turned and left. It quickly disappeared into the depths of the universe. Gu Juejiao quickly caught up with him and asked anxiously, "What are you doing? Why are you leaving so suddenly?" "You're crazy. I don't want to get involved with the Eternal God Gate," Zhou Xuanji said with a deep voice. He thought that Gu Juejiao had found some serendipity. In the end, it was the Eternal God Gate. He felt like he had been played. Gu Juejiao panicked and quickly advised, "The Eternal God Gate is not as dangerous as the rumors say. Qin Zun came from the Eternal God Gate. He told me that there are countless fortunes hidden in the Eternal God Gate. As long as we kill our way out, even mortals can become immortal or even stronger." Zhou Xuanji stopped and asked in astonishment, "Sovereign Qin is from the boundless universe?" Gu Juejiao nodded. "That's right. He entered the Eternal God Gate by mistake 7 billion years ago, and recently came out to make a name for himself." 7 billion years ago. That was a really long time ago. Zhou Xuanji was not tempted. Compared to Gu Juejiao, he trusted the fire god more. "In any case, I'm not going. If you want to go, go by yourself." Zhou Xuanji shook his head and rejected again. He passed by Gu Juejiao and continued to move forward. Gu Juejiao gritted his teeth and cursed. "Zhou Xuanji, you coward. Are you that scared?" Zhou Xuanji ignored him and continued ahead. Gu Juejiu had no choice but to leave. Zhou Xuanji did not take this episode to heart. Since Gu Juejiu wanted to die, then let him go. Just as the two of them separated, a horrifying aura descended suddenly and enveloped Zhou Xuanji. Sword Emperor Zhou Xuanji, where do you dare to run to? A violent cry came, and Zhou Xuanji's soul was shaken. An eternal existence. Zhou Xuanji immediately activated the sword fusion technique, and his entire body shone with a brilliant silver radiance. The eternal will fused into his soul, and he immediately entered the spiritless state, arriving in a pale white space-time. A figure suddenly appeared in front of him. That person was tall and wore silver chainmail. He stood on two dragon-shaped red clouds, and behind him were raging flames. His entire body gave off a great pressure, and the light he gave off made it impossible for others to look directly at his face. The Chang God tribe? Zhou Xuanji asked. Two swords of light appeared in his hands as he prepared to fight. That's right. I am the second elder of the Chang God clan. Zhou Xuanji, come back with me, or else you will suffer. The other party replied in a domineering tone, not allowing Zhou Xuanji to refute. Second elder? Zhou Xuanji raised his eyebrows. The Chang God clan's foundations were quite deep. Sorry, I will make you feel very uncomfortable, Zhou Xuanji said with a smile. Although he was always smiling now, he was never afraid of battle. In fact, he yearned for it. Great timing. He had never fought an eternal existence before. Boom! Zhou Xuanji's aura exploded, and numerous swords of light appeared in the air. The dense swords inundated the second elder of Chang deity. The second elder of the deity Chang scoffed. If that's the case, then I'll show you the power of a second layer will. After he spoke, he charged out of the sea of swords. Zhou Xuanji moved instinctively. Just when he appeared in another place, the second elder of the deity Chang appeared behind him. At the same time. So fast. Zhou Xuanji was shocked in his heart. He slashed backward. The second elder's right palm landed on his body. Boom! The silver radiance on Zhou Xuanji's body exploded immediately. His body was destroyed, and only his soul was left. His expression changed drastically, and he immediately activated the exterminating divine eyes. The exterminating divine light swept out, but it was a pity that it did not hit the second elder. The second elder was extremely fast. It could even be said that he could predict Zhou Xuanji's movements. Every time Zhou Xuanji moved, the second elder could follow him almost at the same time. This guy can predict my movements? Zhou Xuanji was shocked in his heart. His opponent was a second-layer eternal will. Speed might be one of the reasons. Prediction might be the second reason. Zhou Xuanji's eternal will was only in the spiritless mode. He could not gain any advantage against the second elder at all. No. If this continued, he would surely be defeated. Zhou Xuanji immediately created billions of doppelgangers that covered the pale spacetime. These doppelgangers charged towards the second elder of the divine Chang clan. The second elder laughed mockingly and destroyed the doppelgangers with ease. The sword emperor is only a... I can't see any sharpness in your sword. The second elder mocked. He was in a good mood. As long as he could capture Zhou Xuanji, the Chang God clan would have a chance to slaughter their way into the boundless universe. They could finally go home. At this moment, thunderclouds suddenly condensed above his head. He looked up but did not sense any threat. Zhou Xuanji himself charged over with his sword and drew his attention away. Ancestral Dragon Sword. A giant silver dragon appeared. Its entire body was made of eternal will. It was indestructible and unstoppable. The second elder laughed with disdain. He turned his palm and destroyed the ancestral dragon that Zhou Xuanji had transformed into. Before him, Zhou Xuanji was so vulnerable. The difference between a first-layer eternal will and a second-layer eternal will made one despair. But Zhou Xuanji did not despair. He appeared quickly with a peculiar smile. You can still smile? The second elder asked curiously. Zhou Xuanji pointed at the second elder's head. He looked up. The thunderclouds billowed, and he could vaguely see a silhouette materializing. He shook his head with a smile and said, Such tricks cannot threaten me. Any power that was not at the eternal stage could not hurt him. And Zhou Xuanji was much weaker than him. Really? Zhou Xuanji said with a faint smile. Boom! The thunderclouds exploded suddenly. A horrifying silhouette descended and slammed its palm toward the second elder. The second elder's expression changed drastically. He wanted to dodge but realized that he could not move at all. This is Gu Zun. How can it be? He roared, his voice filled with fear. In the next second, he was forced to his knees by Gu Zun's palm. Destiny Manifestation Technique. Zhou Xuanji used his eternal will to activate this technique. The destiny calamity that he created was also at the eternal level. So your death calamity is Gu Zun, he said in amazement. This meant that Gu Zun could be revived in the future. The second elder struggled with all his might. He looked at Zhou Xuanji and cursed furiously. Dispel this technique. Or else, I will slaughter your sword Emperor Divine Court when I enter the northern boundless realm. Zhou Xuanji rolled his eyes at him and said unpleasantly, Be smart and don't talk nonsense. Just wait for your death. Gu Zun swung his palm again. Faster and faster. The palms landed one after another. There was no shocking attack, and there was still some distance between them. The second elder's aura plummeted rapidly under the impact of the formless energy. His body was destroyed, and his soul was on the verge of collapse. End of chapter. Chapter 1063. The Eternal Will's Fate Manifestation Technique was extremely powerful. When Second Elder Chongshen's death tribulation was that of a prime sovereign, the outcome was already decided. No matter how hard Second Elder Chongshen struggled, he could not resist Gu Zun's terrifying pressure. Zhou Xuanji looked at Second Elder Chongshen from afar. He suddenly thought of his World Buddha art. Using the Eternal Will to activate world internalization, would it be able to absorb the eternal will of the Chongshen Second Elder? As soon as he thought of this, he immediately took action. He quickly flew behind the second elder of deity Chong and pierced the second elder's soul body with his sword. He began absorbing second elder Chongshen's eternal will. Boom! The second elder's eternal will clashed with Zhou Xuanji's eternal will. Zhou Xuanji frowned. As expected, it didn't work. In the end, the eternal will was eternal and indestructible. It could not be absorbed. Every eternal will had to be cultivated on its own. Zhou Xuanji could only back off helplessly. He suddenly thought of a treasure. He raised his right hand, and the main emperor door appeared out of thin air. Since he couldn't kill second elder Chongshen, he would suppress him and make him stay in the main emperor's gate forever. The primary emperor door was a treasure left behind by the founding master. How could it not suppress the divine Chong second elder? Zhou Xuanji used the eternal will and directly pulled the Chongshen second elder into the main emperor's door. To prevent any accidents, he once again used fate manifestation on the other side of the door. Second elder Chongshen continued to be tortured. I'm sorry, but you'll have to endure Gu Zun's persecution from now on. The corner of Zhou Xuanji's lips curled up, and he laughed in high spirits. So what if he had the second layer eternal will? So what if he was an undying old monster? He left quickly. In the coming days, the Chong God tribe would definitely try their best to capture him. Just as well. In any case, he didn't have a target. It would be best if he could imprison the entire Chong God tribe within the main emperor's door. Inside the resplendent palace, the 10,000-foot-old man sat on his throne. He frowned and his eyes were filled with anger. Second elder's aura has been cut off. He's either dead or suppressed in some isolated space. The one who spoke was a man in silver armor. The silver armor on his body seemed to be embedded with countless stars, and his entire body emitted a resplendent light. The 100,000-foot-old man did not reply and remained silent. The silver-armored man didn't say anything else. He waited for the old man to speak. After a long while, the old man sighed. If that's the case, then let's use the all-illuminating mirror. The omniscient life-illuminating mirror. The silver-armored man's expression changed drastically and he asked in a deep voice, Do you really want to do this? Many of our clansmen will be sacrificed, and our location will be exposed. Although it has been peaceful for countless years, our blood feud still exists. The old man shook his head and did not say anything. The silver-armored man could only sigh, bow, and leave. Looking at his back, the old man's eyes turned cold and he muttered, We have waited for too long. If we don't go back, so what if we have an eternity? It's not as good as 100 years for mortals. The silver-armored man shuddered and disappeared from the hole. Xueqi slowly walked through a universe filled with ever-changing multicolored lights. Looking at the beautiful sea of stars, he could not help but feel that the lawless zone was truly a wondrous place. There were places scarier than hell, but there were also places as beautiful as a dream. Apart from the Chong god tribe, he hadn't encountered any other races or even any other living beings. He felt as if he had arrived in a dead universe. There was a macro world here, but there were no living creatures in the macro world. This was a place of banishment. No wonder the eternal god race wanted to leave the lawless zone and explore the boundless world. Perhaps it was because this place could not nurture living creatures. Could it be that the number of eternal god race will only decrease and not increase? Xueqi thought to himself. He felt that it was highly possible. Perhaps this was the reason why the eternal god race hid. It was impossible for the eternal god race to be completely harmonious. But in order to reduce casualties, they distanced themselves from each other, causing the lawless zone to be so cold and desolate. Just as Xueqi was sighing in amazement, a ray of golden light swept toward him from behind. He immediately took out his might sword to block. The might of the golden light was absorbed by the might sword. In that instant, Xueqi felt as if something was sucked out of his body. What is this? He furrowed his brows in confusion. The ray of golden light left as quickly as it came. It did not deal any damage at all. He suddenly had a bad feeling. He immediately entered spiritless mode and left quickly. After entering spiritless mode, his sense of unease grew. He felt as if he was being watched by countless eyes. It seemed that the golden light was not simple. Could it be some kind of tracking technique? He thought curiously. This was the only possibility. Boom! A terrifying aura suddenly swept toward him from behind. Xueqi looked back. The Chong god race's 30,000-meter-tall elder was already charging toward him. This great elder had hundreds of clansmen behind him. All of them gave off powerful auras, and the weakest was not inferior to Xueqi from the Eastern Boundless royal family. What a powerful foundation, Xueqi thought to himself. He immediately used the sword fusion technique, and his speed increased tremendously. These people had survived from ancient times, so it was normal for them to be proficient in spiritless mode. However, it was still not enough for them to keep up with Xueqi's speed. Soon, the 30,000-meter-tall elder pulled away from his clansmen, but there was still a long distance between him and Xueqi. Although they could see each other, in this pale space of space-time, every step they took represented the passage of time. A distance of 300 meters was a distance that even immortals and gods could not reach. This brat is so fast. The 30,000-meter-tall elder thought to himself with a frown. Could it be that Xueqi had used spiritless mode as his eternal will? That was impossible. Since ancient times, very few people had been able to do this. The spiritless mode was the pinnacle of space-time, and it was the pinnacle of speed. How could one reach the eternal realm? Xueqi tilted his head and glanced at him. The Great Elder is indeed the Great Elder. He's much faster than the second Elder, Xueqi thought to himself. It was very difficult to use the fate manifestation technique on the 30,000-meter-tall Elder. After all, this fellow had a group of clansmen behind him, and many of them were at the eternal realm. Once he stopped to fight with the 30,000-meter-tall Elder, the others would quickly catch up. Xueqi did not think too much and directly activated the Constitution-defying Creation Sutra and the Tao of Annihilation. Boom! His aura changed abruptly, and his speed rose sharply. In the blink of an eye, he had pulled away from the 30,000-meter-tall Elder. This aura! How is this possible? The 30,000-meter-tall Elder's expression greatly changed, and he looked in the direction that Xueqi had left in shock. He suddenly stopped. His clansmen all caught up. The silver-armored man asked, "Why aren't we chasing?" The 30,000-meter-tall Elder's forehead was covered in cold sweat. He gritted his teeth and said, "No, we have to give up on chasing him." "What? Give up?" The silver-armored man was immediately enraged, and the other clansmen also looked furious. In order to use the omniscient life-illuminating mirror, they had sacrificed their clansmen. And they were going to give up right after catching up. Chapter 1064. After escaping from the Chong God clan, Zhou Xuanji continued to move at full speed. When he arrived at the other side of the lawless zone, he exited the godless state. He turned around and murmured in surprise. He didn't give chase. Could it be that he knows about the scripture of creation and the path of annihilation? That was the only possibility. Otherwise, if the 10,000-meter-old man wanted to chase after him, he would definitely be able to tangle with him for a long time. Zhou Xuanji shook his head and jumped into the absolute time realm. Taking out the Master Emperor door, Zhou Xuanji began to summon the Founder Lord Spirit. After a long while, the primogenitor's spirit flew out and asked unwillingly, "What is it?" Zhou Xuanji smiled and asked, "Do you know the Chang God race?" "I don't know him." "Really?" "Yes." "What kind of attitude is that?" "I've been protecting you." Heh. Looking at the disdainful primogenitor Lord Spirit, Zhou Xuanji raised his eyebrows, feeling somewhat displeased. This fellow was really taking advantage of them. Zhou Xuanji coldly harumphed and asked, "Since you don't want to see me, I'll let you out. You are the progenitor master, and as long as you reveal your identity, countless creatures will worship you." When the primogenitor's spirit heard this, he was instantly angered. He coldly said, "Smelly brat, I have done you a favor. You sealed me, and now you want to abandon me?" As expected. This guy couldn't leave him. Zhou Xuanji guessed that there was something in the boundless universe that the founder spirit feared. Or perhaps, there was something on him that the founder's spirit was looking forward to, making it temporarily unwilling to abandon him. No matter which one it was, Zhou Xuanji could threaten the primogenitor spirit. "I just don't want you to stay in my body." "You call that a seal?" "You can fly out of the main emperor's door at any time, and I won't interfere," Zhou Xuanji said as he harumphed. Facing the enraged spirit of the progenitor lord, he definitely could not cower. The progenitor lord's spirit fell silent. After a long while, "I remember that the Chang god tribe used to be the weakest of the god tribe, nothing to be afraid of. However, after countless years, they have become more and more powerful." Its words were filled with disdain toward the Chang god tribe. "Over the long years, I have seen the rise and fall of countless god tribes in the Emperor's Gate. In terms of strength, there are at least 100 god tribes that are stronger than the Chang god tribe. They hide in the depths of the lawless region, and in order to avoid the myriad tribulations, they have sealed their own tribes," the primogenitor spirit continued. "More than 100? Zhou Xuanji was stunned. The Chang god race had such a powerful foundation, but they were ranked so low among the god races. He suddenly thought of Gu Zun. Just how powerful was Gu Zun? He was actually able to suppress so many races, isolating the god race in the cracks of the boundless universe for eternity. How many layers of eternal will did he have? The scripture of defiance of the Constitution and the Tao of annihilation are the basic rules that make up everything you know. As long as you cultivate them to the extreme, you can destroy the god clan with a single thought. Back then, that kid Gu Zun was too soft-hearted and ended up dying, burying endless troubles for future generations. The ancestor spirit's words did not resonate with Zhou Xuanji. What Zhou Xuanji wanted to know was something else. He asked, "The god race wants to replace the endless universe? There are no prime sovereigns in this world. Am I the only one with the potential to stop them?" Countless years of grievances. Once the god race stepped into the boundless universe, only heaven knew what would happen. Now, he was the only one who had mastered the Constitution defying creation scripture and the Tao of extermination. But his power was far from enough to stop the god race's invasion. "You're thinking too much. You're still far from it. Don't worry, the god race is destined to be destroyed. Your mission now is to develop your sovereign serendipity. If possible, go find other sovereign serendipity." The ancestor spirit pointed out the direction for Zhou Xuanji. Sovereign serendipity. Zhou Xuanji fell into deep thought. He suddenly thought of the legendary sword he had obtained before. Endless Annihilation Emperor Sword. That sword had the power to destroy the endless universe. It was a pity that it had not been born yet and was still being nurtured. Every year, he would obtain legendary swords. But the grades of most legendary swords could no longer affect his power because he was too powerful. Occasionally, some legendary swords would attract his attention. But he was too lazy to take out most of them and left them in the supreme storage. How to develop the sovereign serendipity? Or rather, how to develop the supreme legendary sword system? Zhou Xuanji fell into deep thought. The ancestor spirit said meaningfully, "Your enemy is far more terrifying than the god race you're facing now. They're invincible." Having heard this, Zhou Xuanji looked up and asked in surprise, "What do you mean? Why do I have to face such an enemy?" "This is your destiny. Anyone who strives to become the most powerful will face it. My original body faced it too," the ancestor spirit replied. "The ancestor faced it too? Could it be the ancestor spirit fell because he failed to challenge that existence?" Zhou Xuanji's heart trembled. Even the ancestor spirit, who had created everything, could not compare to that mysterious existence. Naturally, he had no confidence. Without comparison, he would not know the difference. He could not even defeat the Chong god race, let alone Gu Zun. "Why? Are you afraid?" the ancestor spirit asked mockingly. Zhou Xuanji asked with a frown, "I'm not afraid. I just don't understand why it's like this. My destiny? Does it refer to the Constitution-defying Creation Sutra and the Tao of Annihilation?" The ancestor spirit nodded. Just when Zhou Xuanji wanted to continue asking, an aura quickly flew toward him. He immediately stored the ancestor spirit into the Master Emperor's door. He closed his eyes and sensed the aura. This was the absolute time realm. How could there be other auras? Soon he sensed the aura. It was a beam of light. It lingered in the darkness outside the absolute time realm as though it was trying to find the entrance to the absolute time realm. "What's that?" Zhou Xuanji raised his brow. He saw a creature that looked like a white dragon in the beam of light. It was less than a meter long and was covered in white scales that glowed with a faint purple light. Its eyes were very bright, like two pearls that contained countless stars. Zhou Xuanji hesitated a little before jumping out and grabbing the white dragon. Swoosh! The white dragon suddenly moved, directly piercing through his chest, creating a hole. Zhou Xuanji was stunned. He looked down at his chest with a strange expression. "Such power. Why are you grabbing me?" An ethereal voice came from behind, and Zhou Xuanji turned to look at it. The white dragon tilted its head with confusion in its eyes. It looked very innocent. Just when Zhou Xuanji was about to reply, the ancestor spirit's voice came in his mind. "Stay away from it. Hurry." He forgot to seal the Master Emperor's door so that the ancestor spirit could still communicate with him. Even the ancestor spirit was so afraid. Zhou Xuanji immediately jumped into spiritless mode and fled. He was confused as he fled. What was that little guy's background? "Where are you going?" The white dragon's voice came, which sent chills down Zhou Xuanji's spine. He turned around immediately and realized that the white dragon was following him. How could it be? He was fleeing at full speed. Chapter 1065. In the pale space where time stood still, Zhou Xuanji looked at the white dragon spirit and was covered in cold sweat. He did not know what to say. This thing was even more terrifying than the elders of the Chong god tribe. The white dragon blinked, looked at him and asked, "Your aura feels very familiar. Did you cultivate some kind of technique?" Zhou Xuanji heard it and immediately thought of the Constitution-defying Creation Sutra. Only this energy technique was worth the white dragon spirit's attention. "Who are you? What do you want?" Zhou Xuanji asked, pretending to be calm. What cultivation did he have? Despite his power, he could not resist the white dragon spirit at all. The white dragon spirit replied, "I don't know where I came from either. I came out from a door, and I don't have clear memories. But a voice told me to find a sword." Eternal God Gate. Zhou Xuanji frowned deeply. What was that sword? Could it be referring to him? He focused on the sword's way, and his body could become a sword. The white dragon spirit came up close to his face. It blinked its eyes and sniffed his scent as it asked, "Do you know where that sword is?" "I don't know where to go. Your aura is very familiar to me. I won't hurt you." Zhou Xuanji did not know how to reply. He was not even sure if the white dragon spirit was telling the truth. "Is it really just a sword?" he asked hesitantly. "What are you going to do after you find her?" he asked hesitantly. "That's right. A sword that can destroy everything. After I find her, I will destroy her and her master," the white dragon spirit replied. Its tone was very innocent, just like that of a child. Zhou Xuanji could not help but think of his endless annihilation emperor sword. That sword could destroy everything in the endless universe. Other than that, there was no other sword. He was the most powerful sword cultivator in the endless universe. Zhou Xuanji's rise made the sword's way popular again in the northern universe. Under such circumstances, Zhou Xuanji was sure that the White Dragon Spirit was looking for him. Zhou Xuanji could not defeat the White Dragon Spirit. I have to think of a way to trick it. Zhou Xuanji thought to himself. The White Dragon Spirit circled around him and said, I'm not looking for you. You don't have to lie to me. Zhou Xuanji was stunned. He looked a little awkward. Could this guy hear the voice in his heart? Forget it. I'll look for it myself. If you find that sword, remember to look for me. Use this scale. The White Dragon turned around and left, leaving behind a palm-sized white scale. In the blink of an eye, it disappeared. Zhou Xuanji picked up the white scale and fell into deep thought. He looked up and confirmed that the White Dragon was no longer there. He didn't leave. Instead, he stayed where he was and pondered. Just how many unknown and powerful existences had escaped from the eternal divine gate? First was Qin Zun. Then there was Gu Zun's inner demon. Now, there was another white dragon that made his hair stand on end. Zhou Xuanji fell into unease. It seemed like the enemies in the boundless universe were not limited to the lawless region. There was also a threat from the eternal God Gate. Just thinking about it gave him a headache. He sighed and said helplessly, I originally wanted to take a look at new domains and things. How did I get involved in trouble again? Zhou Xuanji began to worry about the Sword Emperor Divine Court situation. He immediately contacted his doppelganger. After a while, Zhou Xuanji's expression changed and immediately disappeared. Inside a palace, Zhou Tanhua sat on the main seat. His face was extremely pale. 12 divine lords, 36 court sovereigns, Yuan Cheng, and Jin Cheng were also standing in the palace. Everyone's face was very ugly. The atmosphere was extremely depressing. Zhou Tanhua took a deep breath and asked, Is there no one in the divine court who can fight Sovereign Qin? A few days ago, Sovereign Qin broke into the Sword Emperor Divine Court alone. He swept away his previous habit of challenging countless overlords and swept the entire Sword Emperor Divine Court. All 12 divine lords were defeated. If it weren't for the ancestral Buddha and the lawless fire god, they wouldn't have been able to drive Sovereign Qin away. Even if the two joined forces, they still wouldn't be able to defeat Sovereign Qin. That guy is too strong. And he feels very strange. He's as dull as a puppet, Yuan Qing said, gritting his teeth. Sovereign Qin made the Sword Emperor Divine Court lose face. Everyone was panicking. The most important thing was that Sovereign Qin didn't leave. He stayed in the Sword Emperor Divine Court, swaggering around. The lawless fire god and the ancestral Buddha only promised to protect the star's domain. If only His Majesty was here, a court sovereign muttered. One of the venerables muttered. His voice was so loud in the quiet palace that everyone could hear it clearly. Zhou Tanhua's face was gloomy. He hated himself for being weak. Sovereign Qin wanted to attack him, but seeing that Zhou Tanhua was too weak, Sovereign Qin disdained him. This deeply provoked him. He had always been confident, but he couldn't abandon everything and cultivate in seclusion. Jin Cheng took a deep breath and said, Now is the time of crisis for the Sword Emperor Divine Court. Everyone must be united. After subduing Nan Wujin, the Sword Emperor Divine Court was like the sun in the sky. It could be said to be the largest force in the endless universe. But now, one Sovereign Qin had destroyed their magnificent image. Jin Cheng was filled with hatred. But he couldn't show it in front of Zhou Tanhua. He was afraid that Zhou Tanhua wouldn't be able to bear the pressure. If Zhou Xuanji doesn't come back within 100 years, then I will destroy the Sword Emperor Divine Court. A domineering shout resounded throughout the entire northern infinity. Everyone in the palace had a drastic change of expression when they heard this. Too arrogant. Zhou Tanhua clenched his fists tightly. His eyes were bloodshot. At this moment, another familiar voice resounded. 100 years? No need, you will die today. Zhou Xuanji. Wah! Everyone in the palace was pleasantly surprised. The next second they panicked. Qin Zun was too powerful. If Zhou Xuanji died in Qin Zun's hands, It would be a devastating blow to the Sword Emperor Divine Court. On the other side, in a cosmic space filled with meteorites, Zhou Xuanji strolled over. Countless silver swords were hovering around him. His expression was indifferent as he locked his gaze on a majestic figure in the distance. It was Qin Zun. Qin Zun sat on a crimson land. His body was extremely burly and wore heavy red armor. 18 long divine weapons levitated behind him. Sabers, spears, halberds, truncheons, and so on. Each of them was burning with raging flames. It was extremely spectacular. Qin Zun's face was shrouded in darkness, revealing only his eyes. He looked as though he came from the abyss. Looking at Zhou Xuanji from afar, he said, "You are finally here. After killing you, my mission will be completed, and I will be free." Zhou Xuanji frowned. His heart was filled with doubts. Tao of extermination. This guy cultivated the Tao of extermination. And he was completely different from the Qin Zun that Gu Juejiu had described. At first glance, Qin Zun seemed to be a puppet controlled by some unknown existence. Zhou Xuanji immediately activated the Constitution-defying Creation Sutra and the Sword Fusion Technique. Immediately, his aura soared. Boom! Qin Zun leaped, and the crimson land under his feet shattered instantly. Almost in an instant, he appeared before Zhou Xuanji. 18 fiery divine weapons appeared around Zhou Xuanji out of thin air, blocking all his escape routes. Chapter 1066. Boom, boom, boom. Qin Zun continued to maneuver and launch continuous attacks at Zhou Xuanji, but he could not break through the silver sword shadows around Zhou Xuanji. Very strong. His strength has already reached the eternal realm. With such a strong strength, can Gu Juejiu fight him evenly? Zhou Xuanji frowned. His heart was filled with confusion. What happened to Qin Zun during this period of time? Could it be that he returned to the eternal gate of God? Zhou Xuanji thought as he fought. Under the state of the eternal will, Qin Zun could not hurt him no matter how hard he tried. The eternal realm was an insurmountable chasm. No matter how many years he cultivated, if he couldn't break through to the eternal realm, it would all be in vain. Zhou Xuanji condensed 2 swords of light in his hands, containing the power of creation and destruction. With a wave of the 2 swords, Qin Zun was sent flying. A cold glint flashed in his eyes, and a shockwave visible to the naked eye erupted. Delusion Sword C. The entire void was filled with countless sword shadows, and an incomparably oppressive destructive will envelop the universe. Qin Zun only had the power of the Tao of extermination. How could he be a match for him? Boom, boom, boom. Countless sword shadows rushed towards Qin Zun. In the beginning, Qin Zun was still able to resist, but soon, his 18 flame divine weapons were no longer able to withstand it. In less than 3 breaths' time, Qin Zun's body exploded and he was on the verge of death. At the same time, the beings hiding in the shadows or watching from afar were all dumbfounded. Qin Zun, who had dominated the Sword Emperor Divine Court, was actually powerless against the Sword Emperor? How could this be? They didn't have the time to be pleasantly surprised. The first thing they felt was shock. It had to be known that Zhou Xuanji was very young in Northern Limitless. Perhaps he was already very powerful, but Zhou Xuanji was a super powerful existence who had swept across all of Northern Limitless. Zhou Xuanji did not know what the others were thinking. He only wanted to capture Qin Zun alive and find out his secrets. Right at this moment. Ah! Qin Zun suddenly roared at the top of his lungs. His roar was earth-shattering. He suddenly condensed his physical body, and many divine flame weapons appeared around him. There were even more of them than before. These flaming divine weapons rapidly grew in size, forcefully blocking the attack of the Delusion Sea of Swords. Zhou Xuanji raised his brow in surprise. There was something in this guy's body. It was providing him with an endless stream of destructive energy. Zhou Xuanji immediately acted. Wielding the 2 swords in his hands, he turned into a series of afterimages and charged straight into the depths of Qin Zun's soul. This was a soul world filled with boundless flames. Zhou Xuanji spread out his eternal will, searching for the source of the Tao of extermination's power. Boom! Qin Zun's figure appeared suddenly. He was holding a halberd that was wrapped in flames as he looked at Zhou Xuanji furiously. As long as I kill you, my mission will be complete. I will be free. Qin Zun gritted his teeth and roared. His face was twisted, and even though it was covered by darkness, one could still see hatred and killing intent. Zhou Xuanji asked, "What mission? Who arranged it for you?" Qin Zun leaped over and thrust his halberd toward Zhou Xuanji. His movements became even faster. Dang! A mighty legendary sword appeared in front of Zhou Xuanji and easily blocked the flaming halberd. An eternal arrangement. You must die. Qin Zun was like a devil, roaring and attacking at the same time. Zhou Xuanji was tired of listening to him. He ignored him and flew toward the source of the path of extermination. Along the way, Qin Zun's attacks never stopped, but he could not hurt Zhou Xuanji. The gap was so huge that Qin Zun was on the verge of collapsing. Zhou Xuanji could sense that his emotions were unstable. His head kept swaying like a robot that had lost control. Pitiful worm. Zhou Xuanji mumbled. His eyes were fixed ahead. At the end of the sea of flames, there was a gigantic black sphere of light. At first glance, its surface looked like glass, but endless black qi flowed within. It was like an abyss, intimidating to look at. Zhou Xuanji was excited. Such a powerful path of extermination. If he could absorb it, Zhou Xuanji's cultivation would surely increase. How can I reject such a serendipity? Zhou Xuanji's lips curled up into a meaningful smile. Qin Zun appeared behind him again. With a loud boom, a silver radiance burst out, and Qin Zun was blasted away. He could not withstand a single blow. Zhou Xuanji came up to the black sphere of light in 2 steps. With the mighty sword in his right hand, he pierced through the surface of the sphere. The majestic path of extermination took the form of the black qi and surged out wantonly, engulfing Zhou Xuanji. Qin Zun was enraged to the extreme. He fell into terror. No matter how he attacked, he could not break the eternal will around Zhou Xuanji. He panicked even more. Once Zhou Xuanji succeeded, he would surely die. Let me go, Qin Zun said with gritted teeth and stopped attacking. But even though this guy begged for mercy, he still looked very ferocious. Zhou Xuanji ignored him and continued to absorb the path of extermination. At the same time, Zhou Xuanji felt that this path of extermination was very familiar. He seemed to have encountered it somewhere before. But thinking about it, he had only met a handful of people who had grasped the path of extermination, and none of them matched it. This is so strange. Recently, I've encountered too many familiar things that I can't recall, Zhou Xuanji mumbled to himself. Zhou Xuanji muttered to himself. With a thought, he took out the Master Emperor door and pretended to block in front of him. He asked in his heart, "Does this path of extermination come from the Eternal God Gate?" This path of extermination. Zhou Xuanji was looking forward to it. The Ancestor Lord Spirit was more experienced. He got the answer just by sensing it. I'm not sure. The Ancestor Lord Spirit replied. Zhou Xuanji almost went on a rampage. If you're not sure, then you're not sure. Boom! The path of extermination in the black sphere suddenly sped up and poured into Zhou Xuanji's body. Caught off guard, Zhou Xuanji's consciousness was impacted, and he fell into a daze. I hate! Qin Zun roared at the top of his lungs. His body formed by his soul quickly dissipated. The soul world began to collapse. The sea of flames dissipated. Zhou Xuanji appeared in the void of the northern endless universe. His entire body was shrouded in black qi, and he was in a strange state. The main Emperor Gate took him away suddenly and disappeared into the void. Soon, the divine lords of the Sword Emperor Divine Court came one after another. In the pale space-time in a godlike state, Zhou Xuanji stood there quietly with the main Emperor Gate behind him. The Ancestor Lord Spirit came out from the gate, but he could not see his face. The Ancestor Lord Spirit rubbed his chin and thought to himself, strange. How could this brat absorb the path of extermination so easily? What's hidden in it? It began to circle around Zhou Xuanji, trying to see through him. A while later, Zhou Xuanji opened his eyes suddenly. His eyes were pitch black, and the scara could not be seen. Next, his eyes returned to normal. He looked at his hands and sensed the surging path of extermination in his body. He frowned. So easy. It feels like it's waiting for me on purpose. Zhou Xuanji mumbled to himself. He was on his guard instinctively. The Ancestor Lord Spirit replied, Be careful. That guy escaped from the Eternal God Gate after all. Everything has a cause and effect. You're tuning in to the Xueqi's Martial Arts Saga YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.